Welcome to Poker Fraud Alert Radio. I'm your host, Todd Dandruff. This is being brought to you live and recorded live on February 9th, 2025. The time is 12:48 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. I'm sure you have questions about what's been going on with me, why the show has not been heard in 7 weeks. Yes, I've been doing the show less often, less frequently than I had in the past. It went from once a week to once every 10 days to once every 2 weeks to once every 3 weeks to once a month. So, okay. Yeah, we were declining in frequency, but aside from when I took that hiatus in 2018, there's never been a 7-week gap between shows. The last one was 7 weeks ago on December 21st, 22nd of 2024. This is the first show of the year, and we're well into February. So what happened here? I had some people who were concerned that maybe something had happened to me. I mean, they knew I wasn't dead because I was tweeting and I was posting on Poker Fraud Alert, but why was I not doing radio? And if you remember, on the last episode, I talked about how I had a cough that would not go away as a result of a cold that I caught while I was in Vegas in mid-December. So I was having to edit out the coughing from the show when I edited it, and I was mentioning it was going to be tough for me to get through. That was the last you heard. Well, the cough seemed to be done. In fact, the lingering cold, which was still there when I did the broadcast on the 22nd, still there very much. It was a struggle to get through the whole thing. And then the cough lingered, and really the cold wasn't going away. And finally, this long-lasting cold disappeared on December 29th, and I was thrilled to see it. It was a 12-day cold, and really the major symptoms were not disappearing until the very end. So I was happy. On the 29th, I woke up, I felt better. In fact, I even went to a home game that I sometimes go to in the LA area, and I told everyone at the home game that this was the first day that I was feeling better, and that I'd had a cold for almost 2 weeks that I had caught in Vegas. So I felt totally fine that day, the 29th, and then the weird thing was, driving back from the home game, I started to feel chills, and I could not figure it out. It wasn't that cold of a night, even though it was winter. It wasn't that cold of a night. I was in my car. I kept turning up the heat more and more and more, and then I was blasting like top-level heat as I'm driving. And the home game's not that close to where I live, so I had to drive a number of miles, and I'm blasting the heat, and I am not warming up. So it's not like I'm driving in 0-degree weather. I mean, there was a weird thing going on where it was probably in the 40s, and I could not warm up enough in my car. So I thought, that's strange. That's usually an indicator you're sick, but I was better. And also, I hadn't had any chills in this cold. Usually when I get chills, it's because I'm getting a fever, and I don't get fevers from colds. But then it subsided by the time I got home, and then I took my temperature, and I didn't have a fever. So I thought, okay, that was weird, but whatever. Then it happened the next night when I was at home, and I thought, that's kind of weird too. Unfortunately, I went with Ken Scaler the following day to help him with something during the day, and I noticed my cough was back, and my cold was kind of back. Like I was getting some congestion, I was coughing, and I said to Ken, "Are you sure you want me to see you? Because, it's a possibility that you can catch this." And he said, "Oh, no, it's fine, let's just do it." And then as the day went on, I got worse and worse, and I couldn't figure it out. I said, wow, how did the cold come back this strong? In fact, how is it worse than before? Because I felt a lot more fatigued. I was getting hot and cold flashes. I was just really feeling lousy. And then I took my temperature, and I saw I had a fever of about 101, and I knew it was not a cold. Played the sound effect a bit prematurely, but yeah, it was not a cold, unfortunately. I knew that because I don't get fevers with colds, as I said. And I've known this for a long time. I mean, when I was a kid I did, but not since I've been, older than 20 have I gotten a fever with a cold. So 101 fever meant this was not a cold. And I thought, this might be a flu. Or it could be COVID. It'd been 6 months since I had COVID, or 5.5 months, so it easily could have been COVID again. But I knew it was not a cold. And boy, did it worsen rapidly. On New Year's Eve, I was in very bad shape. The fever had gone up. I was very dizzy. It was hard for me to really do anything except be in bed and occasionally get up and stumble to the toilet and then come back. I wasn't really nauseous, but I had a lot of different symptoms, and it really seemed like either the flu or COVID. Though if it was COVID, it was worse than the other 2 COVIDs I had, which were so mild I thought they were a cold. This one did not feel like a cold. This one felt very harsh. I got into an urgent care, the last one that was open in 2024, on December 31st, and they gave me a test on the spot, which showed that I had influenza A. I don't know why the sound effects keep playing early, but influenza A was what I had. So that's not good. Not only was that the flu, but that's the worst of the flus. If you get influenza B, it's typically not as bad. If you get A, you're usually in for a rough ride, and I definitely was, because it got worse from there. I ended up with a fever that was as high as 103.6, which is very high for an adult. For kids, that's not a big deal, but adults don't get fevers that high usually. In fact, I have not had one that high since I was 17 years old. So since the 80s, I have not had a fever as high as what I had on December 31st, 2024. And I also felt like it was damaging my body. It's hard to describe, and I've never felt this before. I've had times I was really, really sick in the past, even as an adult, even as an older adult. But I've never felt before where I get sick and I kind of have a feeling like it's doing some damage. But that was what I was feeling, and I actually thought to myself, I see how people die from this. I didn't think I was going to die. I just felt the whole thing was so harsh and seemed to be harming my body that I thought, you know what, if I was 80 years old, I could easily see how I would die from this. That's what I was thinking. Again, I was not worried I was going to die at any point, but I was thinking, like, I can see how the flu kills people, given how I was feeling there. Anyway, January 1st, very, very bad New Year's for me because of that. Did I see any kind of, or participate in any kind of New Year's festivities? Answer, not really. I've never had a New Year's where I don't do something as it rolls over to midnight, even if it's just watching the ball drop on TV, which was repeated because it really dropped 3 hours prior because I'm on the West Coast. Like, I always do something. I don't just ignore it or go to sleep. I think the last time I was not there for some kind of New Year's countdown was when I was like 4 years old. I think starting when I was 5 in 1977, I was up till midnight and observing the rollover at midnight every single year since 77. So here I was lying there. It was so hard to get up. I had this high fever. I have zero energy. I was very dizzy, and I forced myself to get out of bed at like 11:58 and stumble down the stairs and force myself in front of the TV. And I told Benjamin to stay away from me. In fact, he knew not to get anywhere near me because he didn't want this. And watched the ball drop. I was just kind of sitting there emotionless with just a blank look on my face. I watched it happen, and then I forced myself off the couch at 12:02 and went back to bed. That was my New Year's celebration. And it actually peaked at about 3:30 a.m. on New Year's, January 1st. And by the way, this was the first time in my life that I was sick on New Year's. Every other New Year's, I have not been sick. And I've had a lot of illnesses in January in my life. I can think of a lot of times going back to when I was a kid that I had the flu, I had a bad cold, something on January 1st. Never before until January 1st, 2025. That was the first time I've ever been sick on New Year's. But boy, was I sick. So it actually peaked on January 1st at about 3:30 a.m. And I kept like sleeping an hour, then waking up because I was hurting or just felt so awful I couldn't keep sleeping or felt super uncomfortable. So I had a bad headache. My body was hurting. I was nauseous. I had a fever of over 103. I was very, very cold. Just everything. Everything was going on. And I couldn't fall back asleep because of all this. So finally I just said, you know what? I got to do something here. So I got a bunch of things and took them together. Whether it's medically advisable or not, I did it. So I took a Zofran, which is something that is anti-nausea. I took Advil to bring down the fever. I took a Vicodin to kill the headache. And I said, okay, let's see if all this works together. And it actually did. And knowing the fever was probably going to come down somewhat from the Advil and I was going to get hot, I had the foresight to open the window on this cool winter night, figuring that very soon I'm going to go from very cold to very hot, and I don't want to wake up from that. So it all worked. I actually slept for like 6 hours straight. First time I got some good sleep during that. Then I woke up, the room was cold because the window had been open the whole time. But I was like, wow, it worked. Actually, the nausea went away. The fever went down. The coldness turned to hotness. The headache went away. And I was able to fall asleep. So the meds worked. I don't know if I was supposed to do that, but, I was getting desperate. Anyway, the whole rest of the day, though, I still couldn't get out of bed. Still was very sick. And I really didn't start improving until January 3rd, and I still was not in the best shape January 3rd. By January 4th, I was a lot better, but I had some problems. I had a lot of lingering problems after that. A very bad cough that remained, much worse than the cough I had in December. Very bad cough remained on January 4th. I still had a cold, where it wasn't an actual cold, but I had nasal congestion like a cold. That didn't go away. Still had a lot of fatigue. So I would be up a short time and then have to go back and keep taking naps. And I thought, wow, I guess I was right. I guess this did kind of harm me because I'm not over this. And I said, well, I just got over a very harsh flu. This should get better within a few days. But it didn't. It dragged. It dragged, and I just wasn't the same guy. And it was kind of depressing, that this just happened to me. Because before I went to Vegas in December and got that cold, I was feeling okay. And then this cold hit, and then the flu hit right after. So I really had a bad cold, followed by the flu, back to back, with like 1 day in between. And the 1 day wasn't even a real 1 day, because I had caught the flu somehow as the cold was ending. So I had 1 day of no symptoms. And then I got the flu symptoms right after that. By the way, if you're wondering about Master Scaler, he never caught it. He was fortunate. He did take the flu shot, though, so maybe +1 to the flu shot there. And that probably brings you to your next question. Did I have the flu shot? Answer, no. Why not? Because I hardly get the flu. I get the flu about once every decade. So I guess this is my 2020s flu. I had it once in the 2000s. I had it once in the 2010s. And this was my flu here right in the middle of the 2020s. So I just don't want to take vaccines for things that are just not going to happen often and that are not going to kill me or do something really bad to me. Also, I have a bit of a gripe with the flu shot because I got shingles in 2010, and I can't prove this, but I believe as a result of a combination of the Tdap shot, the pertussis and diphtheria tetanus shot, the Tdap shot and the flu shot I got at the same time, right after getting over a cold. I had that because I had a new baby coming at the time in 2010. And I got shingles 2.5 weeks later, and from some looking online, there were a lot of stories about this where people who got the Tdap shot got shingles 2.5 weeks later. Exactly the timetable I did. So you may say, okay, what's my problem with the flu shot? Well, I got that at the same time as the Tdap shot. My theory was that getting those two shots together plus just being over a cold stressed my immune system too much and then allowed the shingles to get through, which is a very reasonable theory, but there's no way to prove it. So since then, I'm like, I don't want to get the flu shot. I'll do it when I'm old. I'll do it when it's actually life-threatening. But I'll tell you, after what I went through here, I may actually get the flu shot starting later this year. This may have made me a convert because I never had this much impact from the flu. I've had very bad flus before. I remember in 2005, I caught a really bad one that just completely knocked me out for 3 days, and I was vomiting in that one. This one I was able to not vomit, especially thanks to the Zofran. So that one, maybe the peak symptoms were worse than this one, though the fever wasn't as high. It's close, but I think maybe that one could have been slightly worse. But when I was done, I was done. I was just over it, and it was like I never had it. This one I was almost 33. So here 20 years later, it really was 20 years later, in January 2005 to January 2025, I handled it much worse. And it might be because I'm 2 decades older. So it wasn't going to kill me, but maybe my body's ability to handle it has declined. So I might get the flu shot, even though I know it's not perfect. I know sometimes it's not even 50% effective, and I know that there's always some downsides to any kind of vaccine. But boy, I mean, this was tough. This was a tough one. But that doesn't explain why I haven't been on radio since then. This was something that I had in early January. We're in February now. So what happened? Well, another thing was going on at the same time, and that was power failures. And that's because of the LA fires. Now, I was not in the fire zone. I was never really in danger of having the fire get to my house. However, due to what they call Santa Ana conditions, and that is dry, windy conditions that come to Southern California, typically during the months of November, December, and January, the power company was shutting off power to prevent fires from starting due to their equipment. Now, it turned out it happened anyway. At least one of these fires, the very major Eaton fire in Altadena, was due to Southern California Edison's equipment malfunctioning. In fact, it's on video. So they're going to be sued over this. That fire caused tremendous damage. But anyway, a lot of people's power were shut off to prevent things like that. And mine was getting shut off over and over and over, and sometimes for as much as 3 days. And it's awful to have no power for 3 days, especially in the winter, because your house gets cold. If you think about it, you have no power. Even though I have gas heating, the furnace can only blow when it has electricity. So I can't use it. So the house got cold. Santa Ana's bring warmer temperatures than typical for the winter, so that's nice. And sometimes you'll get lucky, and the Santa Anas will be very warm with highs of like 85 and lows of like 60, but that's not what we got. We got highs of like 65 and lows of like 48, which aren't bitter cold, but you have no heat in your house the whole day. The house starts getting cold. So that was crappy. And over and over and over these power failures, we lost so much money in food that went bad. Even though I tried to preserve it with coolers and things and ice, there's only so much you can do when you got 3 days. But boy, did it suck. So every time I was thinking of doing radio, maybe, the fucking power's out, and I can't do it. Or there's a threat of the power going out, and I don't want to start radio and have it cut. So you may say, but hold on, that's been a while now. Those fires pretty much stopped being a factor, and the Santa Ana conditions stopped around like January 24th, 25th. It's been another 2 weeks. Why haven't you been on since then? Well, I'm going to go back to the flu. I still had this cough. And every time I thought, okay, I'm going to do radio, then I'd feel the cough, and I go, I just don't want to talk all night like this. So radio just wasn't happening. And it was bothering me. Believe me, it was bothering me. I know some of you were disappointed. I know some of you enjoy this show. You like having this to listen to. It felt weird to not have it for 7 weeks. It felt weird to me to not do it for 7 weeks. And I couldn't wait to finally get on here and talk again. So is this the new schedule? Is it going to be every 7 weeks now? No, obviously not. I am going to try to do the show a lot more. If I have a cough again, it's not all better. It's not all gone. But it's good enough to do here, and I can always mute it and just take it out in editing, whatever. And I can always do a shorter show. So I'll do more shows. So for those of you who've been waiting and don't really know what's going on, and I'm sorry about that, and the show's not going away. It's still going to be here. Some of you thought that I'm just done with the show, that I just kind of lost interest, and this is it. If I ever do lose interest and just stop it, I would have a final show. I would explain, okay, guys, this is the final show, and we're not going to do this anymore. And I'll tell you, I've had passing thoughts, not about so much ending the show, but I thought, okay, maybe I should go a different direction. Maybe the poker thing is kind of played out. Maybe it's just time for me to go do something else. Not to quit poker forever. I'm not going to be one of the idiots going, I'm retiring from poker, I'm gone, goodbye, everybody. No, I'll probably play poker for the rest of my life as long as I can physically do it. So I'm not going to retire in that way. But is it possible that I'm eventually going to move on media-wise to something else or just stop entirely? Yeah, it's possible. I consume some conservative media online, and the truth is most of it is crap. I'm watching less and less of it because I think it's crap. And I think there really is kind of a need for a sensible conservative, a fair conservative to come on and just tell people how it is, even if it's going to be criticizing his own side sometimes, and not just go along with the outrage of the day. But at the same time, not be a fake conservative that says he's a Republican but bashes his own party all the time and spouts left-wing talking points. I'm talking about a real conservative that would come out and just analyze everything. And I think I would be good at that. And I think there is a need for a show like that, especially aimed at an older age group. Ones that aren't aimed at millennials or younger people, but ones that are actually aimed at people who are 40 and up. So I'm sure I could do a good show like that, and it would probably have a much bigger reach, and I would probably get a much bigger listenership than this show, and I could probably make money from it. And that's come to mind. And sometimes I think, you know what, maybe I should just shut down Poker Fraud Alert Radio and kind of convert it into that, and some of my audience can follow me over. I'm not going to just disappear. But maybe it's just time to stop the poker stuff. Maybe it's just time to let the guys also doing it, just let them do it. But you know what? I'm still part of this community. I know people still want to hear this type of content. And we do a show that's different than everybody else's show. If I was just a copy of everybody else, basically doing the same thing but saying it a different way, then there's no point. I mean, yes, I cover some of the same stories that other people cover. But it's a different type of show. There's a lot of different things in this show that you will never hear or see on any of these other poker or gambling podcasts. First of all, we do both poker and gambling. We don't just do poker. We don't just do casino gambling. I do both. I cover Las Vegas news. I tell you stuff about my life and myself. I do segments like Mojave Desert and Las Vegas history. There's a lot of variety to this show. And I'll also do deep dives into topics that others will just kind of briefly cover or won't touch at all. And I'll just also sometimes find news stories which aren't really about poker or gambling that I think are interesting to discuss, especially if they have anything to do with scams or anything like that. And I feel like if I shut it down, that you guys will kind of miss it. That the fans of this show will miss it because you're not quite getting all of that with these other broadcasts that may have more listeners than I do, but you're not going to get all that. And I feel that a lot of people like all this stuff, and it'll never come back if I just leave. So, no, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to keep doing it. But if I ever do leave, then I will let you know where I'm going next. Why has it decreased in frequency? It's just because I'm getting older. I don't have as much energy for this anymore. That's the truth. I was thinking about it. I go, yeah, I just don't have the energy for this anymore like I used to. I'm not saying I have no energy for it. I'm just saying I don't have the energy now to do these long shows every week and edit them. And you can say, well, stop editing them. Well, it's an option, but I got used to editing it. Now it kind of feels weird not to edit it. I want the show to sound good. So that's where it stands right now. I'm just being honest with you guys. But yeah, the bottom line is you can expect more shows for the foreseeable future, and you're not going to wait 7 weeks between them. Sorry there's no free roll tonight, but that's the way it goes because there wasn't really that much announcement about this show, but we will resume that as well. Okay, so if you want to call the show, the phone number is 775-FRAUD-55, 775-372-8355. There's the Mount Charleston line, which is an old 70s rotary phone, which forwards to me wherever I go, 702-430-1808. You can find the show in podcast format on iTunes, TuneIn, iHeartMedia, Spotify, Audible, Odyssey. That's AUDACY, in case you're wondering. Amazon Alexa, you just say, Alexa, play Poker Fraud Alert Radio podcast. You can also find it on CastBox, And most importantly, on YouTube. Just type in Poker Fraud Alert, 3 words, Poker Fraud Alert, and you'll find it. Or you can also just go directly to the Poker Fraud Alert channel. That is youtube.com/@PokerFraudAlert. And then just click on videos, and you'll see all the videos. If you don't do that, then you'll sometimes show stuff out of order. But if you just click on videos, it'll show the most recent video on top and go down from there. And basically, the YouTube version doesn't really have much video or any video on it. It's usually just the Poker Fraud Alert logo and the audio version of the show, but you can listen on YouTube. So there's a demand for that. And I get a small amount of Jew Gold if people listen to it. Very small amount. So don't feel obligated, but I'm just telling you that's the only platform where I get paid anything for you listening to it. And as you know, I have no sponsors. I don't seek sponsors. This is not a show that I'm doing to make money. In fact, I was just thinking that about, hey, all the other people, they work monetizing into their site and I don't. And why don't I do that? Do I hate money? No. I just kind of felt like monetizing this thing can interfere with the integrity of the show or even the perceived integrity of the show, given the subject matter, given who would like to advertise here typically. So I don't want to become an affiliate. I don't want to advertise online poker sites or online casinos and then have to come back and criticize them. It's a good thing. I can criticize anyone or anything I want, and I have no obligation to anybody. Whereas, like, if let's say I was an ACR affiliate, well, then I couldn't cover the topic tonight with all honesty that we're going to do about ACR Pro Nacho Barbero and the controversy surrounding that. Like, I could not do that type of segment if I were an ACR affiliate. So I don't want to be an ACR affiliate for that reason. I don't want to be a GG affiliate. I don't want to be an affiliate for anybody. Now, if you have something that isn't going to interfere with that type of stuff and you want to advertise on here, let me know. But it's fine if I have no advertisers. We have a chat room you can go into if you're listening live right now. But if you want to reach me, it's probably better to text me at the main phone number 775-372-8355. Someone texted me, will there be a show tonight? Been looking forward to this. And I said, now. Hopefully he found it. Texting all these people now, right now. All these people are asking earlier, is it going to be on? Saying now. Hopefully they didn't fall asleep because it's very late. It's 1:21 a.m. Pacific right now. Some of these people are not in the Western time zone. But hopefully you're happy to hear me back. And we're going to do our usual thing here. So here's the agenda, and then we will get going. ACR Pro Nacho Barbero is in controversy after a photo of his online play shows GTO Wizard on his screen. GTO Wizard is a tool you can use to analyze hands and advise the right play. And it can be used for cheating. Even though it's not designed for that, it can be used for that, and it's a very bad look to have that on the screen when you are an ACR Pro and you're playing ACR. And then ACR, as always, botched the social media response, and that made it worse. They always pour gasoline on their own fires, so we'll tell you about that. Then we will dive into the case of famed Supreme Court lawyer Thomas Goldstein. Why do we care about him? Because he's in trouble with the IRS for evading taxes on poker winnings and hiring women to fake work for him and pay them when he really owed the IRS. The IRS does not appreciate that when you owe back taxes and you're hiring fake employees so those women will have sex with you when they really don't work for your company. So that's what he's accused of doing, and some other things. He's accused of a whole lot of stuff by the feds, some which is frivolous and stupid and I don't think it's going to result in any kind of consequences, and some of it is more serious, like the tax evasion and the thing with the women. So I'm going to cover that. And also, if you watched Hustler Casino live in the last few years, you may have remembered there was this mysterious guy named Thomas who covered his face with a mask who was said to be a mega millionaire in one of these high-stakes games. That's actually who it was. And he actually has a connection to Dan Bilzerian, too. So I'll tell you all about Thomas Goldstein, who you probably hadn't heard of prior to this whole story, and what's going on with him and how it has to do with poker. Very interesting story, and it is ongoing with breaking news every few weeks about it. Speaking of attorney poker players in trouble, Steve Jacobs, a.k.a. Steve's Bets. I appeared on his podcast a few years ago. He also sometimes listens to this show. He has been embroiled in controversy involving a sports betting bearding operation, which that by itself is fine. It's when someone who is known to be a losing bettor gets high limits to bet sports, and then experts actually advise them on what to bet, and then they split the profits. Because the hardest thing if you're an expert sports bettor is to get action, to get sports books or bookmakers willing to take your action when they know that you can beat the books with your picks. So when you have someone who's known to be a losing sports degenerate and you give them high limits as a book because you think you're going to win a lot of money from them, and then they're really secretly getting advice from the top sports bettors, and he's betting on their behalf and taking a commission for it, that can be very profitable. I see nothing wrong with that. I'll explain why when we do the segment. We've talked about this before, but anyway, there's an ongoing controversy involving him and a well-known sports bettor known as Spanky, and another guy named Oscar Jones, who is not very well known but is embroiled in this whole thing. It's a big legal battle, and Steve Jacobs has lost the most recent round after winning some of the earlier rounds. So I'll play a little segment of Steve's Bets, a.k.a. Steve Jacobs, in court, and I'll remind you what's going on with the whole thing, and I'll give you my opinion on it. By the way, he didn't love my last segment about him. He thought I was not fair or whatever, but I was. I've been very fair about this whole thing. There's been some people who've really, really jumped down Steve Jacobs' throat and just said the worst things about him possible. I try to approach this very fairly, but I would not be honest if I were to say that I believe he's innocent, because I don't. Gambling coaching scammer Christopher Mitchell. Now, he's not an attorney. He's not smart enough to become an attorney. But gambling coaching scammer Christopher Mitchell has lost his Facebook account after attacking Poker Fraud Alert listener and regular forum member Lee Bradbury, a.k.a. A Hoosier A. He's been on this show before. And out of nowhere, Christopher Mitchell attacked him in January, and bye-bye Christopher Mitchell's Facebook account, which we believe to be related. So I'll tell you about that and what is going on with Christopher Mitchell right now, and why we believe it was because of this attack on Lee, why I think he attacked Lee in the first place, but I can't say for sure. So I'll tell you that little Christopher Mitchell update will probably make you smile. Speaking of a smile, which poker player would you think cares about your smile? Not that you're smiling, but how your smile looks. How about Jamie Gold? Yes, Jamie Gold cares about your teeth and gums. He really does, and I'm going to prove it to you during one of our lighthearted segments here. Leon Sukernick, the controversial owner of King's Casino, or should I say former owner, and the King Lounge at the WSOP, also the owner of that, the high-limit room there during the World Series of Poker, almost died Michael Jackson style when he was getting propofol administered to him to fall asleep. Don't do that. If you have a lot of money, don't do that. Even if you like propofol, don't use it to fall asleep. Did not end well for Michael Jackson, and Leon Sukernick almost died at age 51 from doing just that, but he did survive. I'll tell you about that whole ridiculous story. Miami John Cernuto, unfortunately, is not going to get off as easy as Leon Sukernick, and for Miami John, this is not his fault. Miami John is 81 years old. He's an old-school poker player who goes back more than 40 years. He's very well-liked in the community. He is currently on hospice because he has cancer, and he has given up the fight against the cancer and realized it's just not going to work. And he is being taken care of by his son at the moment and likely only has months left at most, and maybe even less than that. So I'll tell you what's going on with him. And also a little bit of controversy regarding the Poker Hall of Fame, that some people are kind of angry at them over something related to Miami John. So I'll tell you about all that. And that's a sad story because he's well-liked in poker, and that will be sad for the community when he's gone. Las Vegas was surprisingly empty during Super Bowl weekend, and I know it's still going on. We're just about to get into Super Bowl Sunday as I'm recording this. But the question is why? Why would Vegas be empty during Super Bowl weekend? That's usually a very busy time there. Now, yes, the Super Bowl was actually in Vegas last year, whereas this year it's not. But last year was the only year it's ever been in Vegas. All other years, Super Bowl weekend has been a very nice weekend for Vegas as far as the casinos making money and being full. And this year it's empty, and they had to lower the room rates down very low. In fact, it was the cheapest weekend of the year to stay in Vegas. You'd never guess that, right? So why was that? Well, they're still trying to figure it out, but some people on social media are trying to take a guess at it, and I will tell you what I think when we get to that segment. Major League Baseball umpire Pat Hoberg was fired for sharing a gambling account with a poker pro, an unnamed poker pro. I don't know who it is yet, but he has been fired for that, and also games were bet on baseball with that account, which is very bad, including some games which Hoberg umpired. We covered before, I mean, there's probably a lot of these stories you've heard on this show, but one of them was about two women who brought a Spanish-speaking tourist to his room. They went with him back to his room and robbed and murdered him. Two young women. And they were arrested, and they have been sentenced, but you will not believe how short the sentence is, even though they pled guilty to the murder. Miscarriage of justice, in my opinion. I'll tell you about that. Speaking of Caesars, they are likely to massively downgrade the 4 free drink benefit from Las Vegas properties for Diamond Plus and Diamond Elite members starting on February 10th. At the moment, right now it's February 9th, you can go to any Caesars outlet and get 4 drinks, even prepackaged drinks like Naked Juice or Tropicana Orange Juice or something like that. Or you can get 4 drinks at Starbucks or at Giada's Pronto little quickie outlet there, or the casino bars. There's a lot of places you can use these 4 free drinks, which you get if you're Diamond Plus or higher at Caesars. And this has been a headache for them. I covered this last year. I told you a rumor that this would be gone in 2025. Then I was asking about it in late January, and I was being told, no, that's not happening. It's not disappearing. And just as I felt that there was thick egg on my face, turned out I was right. Turned out my information was right. Well, not 100% because it hasn't happened yet, but it has not been announced officially, but it is believed that starting on February 10th, that it's going to change. There's going to be a massive downgrade for Diamond Plus and Diamond Elite members, so I will tell you about that. Then a Caesars fail story. We always have those to present you. Caesars had an enticing 10 times tier credit promo. Their first one I think they've ever had in January 2025 in the Vegas market. And those that earned a higher status thanks to that promo, well, the good news was they got their multiplied credits a lot faster than was told. They were told it would be up to 14 days, and they got it within like 3. So that's the good news. The bad news is Caesars messed up, and they did not get the right status that they earned. So I will tell you about that. Speaking of that, I have updated my guide on Poker Fraud Alert regarding earning Diamond and 7 stars as cheaply as possible at all the different Caesars properties in the country. I'll tell you where to find it and why it's useful. That's been something I've had on the site for about 9 years, but it needs updating every so often, so I took the time and updated it a few days ago, and I'll tell you how to find it and how to use it. You think that's all we have to talk about? No. We have so much more. The Commerce Casino has closed all of its safe deposit boxes, being the last card room in LA to do so. They were the last man standing with safe deposit boxes as far as LA card rooms, and now there are none. And then there were none. So I'll tell you about what is going on with that and why Commerce closed it. Kenny Chesney will be the first country music star who has a residency in the Sphere in Las Vegas. It's going to start in mid-May of this year. I saw Kenny Chesney in concert in 2001. I'll tell you a little bit about that story. And we're also going to discuss whether or not Kenny Chesney is gay. And you may say, come on, Druff, who cares about that? This is 2025. Live and let live. And I say, no, I don't care if he's gay. He says he's not, and that's why it's interesting. If he said, hey, I'm gay, it wouldn't really matter to me. But it's the fact that he has denied for 2 decades that he's gay, yet he might be. So I'm going to present the facts to you, and then you can decide for yourself whether you think Kenny Chesney is gay. It's something that I can kind of go either way on, but we'll discuss that when we get to that segment. Is that the last segment? No. We have another one. The CNF fee, or concessions fee, you'll sometimes see at certain Las Vegas restaurants on the Strip. Not all of them, but you'll sometimes see it, and you may assume it's a tax. You may assume it's like a Vegas city tax or something, and you just have to pay it like you have to pay tax. Well, no. You can actually take it off. You can legally refuse to pay it, and the restaurants will take it off pretty easily without arguing with you. So I'll explain what that is, which restaurants are doing it, and how to get it off. Finally, final topic. Longtime Las Vegas comedian Cook E. Jar. Cook E. Jar. No, that's not his birth name, but that's what he went by. Cook E. Jar has died, not because he couldn't open himself anymore, but because he was 73 years old and he died. So I'll tell you about a Cookie E. Jar and his long history in Las Vegas and what type of show it was. And no, I never got to see it, and I kind of regret it. So that's the story. That's the agenda tonight, which pretty much took the length of most shows that you'll hear to even tell you. So this is a very long agenda. I'll be doing this a long time, and hopefully I'll be able to wake up in time to watch the Super Bowl, because I do want to watch the Super Bowl. But by the time you hear this, probably the Super Bowl will have been over, because I'm not going to edit it until after the Super Bowl. So if you're listening live, then you'll probably hear it before the Super Bowl. Well, anyway, enough with that. Let's get to the first topic. Very, very long agenda this time. But I also explained why I was missing all this time, so that wasn't really part of the agenda. All right. Nacho Barbero. What is his story? What's going on with him? And is his real name Nacho? Is he named after a popular snack? No, that's not his actual name. That's a nickname. His real name is Jose Barbero. He's from Argentina. In fact, he's the most successful poker player from Argentina. He calls himself Nacho Barbero, and he's been around for at least 20 years or something. I've seen him for a long time. He is presently a sponsored pro on ACR, America's Card Room, and he's gotten himself into some hot water over a picture he stupidly posted. You got to look at the pictures you're going to post on social media and say, is there something on my screen that people shouldn't see? And if there is, then don't post it. But he didn't do that. And no, I'm not talking about porn on his screen. Maybe that was there too. We could only see part of the screen. But he posted, "Today we playing the Venom on ACR Poker," and put little flame emojis on there. This is on Instagram. And he had a picture of him playing the Venom on ACR. One little problem. Right in the middle between his two screens of Poker Player on ACR was the helper tool GTO Wizard. GTO Wizard is a popular hand analyzer that allows you to learn from it, to learn to play closer to GTO, or Game Theory Optimal Poker. And what it's supposed to be used for is you feed in the situation you were in to GTO Wizard, and then it will tell you what the GTO play would be. And if the way you actually played the hand was different, you could say, oh, okay, well, I wasn't playing GTO that time. GTO Wizard is suggesting that I should have done this, and then you learn from it. That's what GTO Wizard is supposed to be for. You analyze your past poker hands. And that's totally fine and totally ethical. You can always use tools to improve, even if they're automated tools that try to teach you GTO theory. That's fine. Anything while you're not playing poker that you want to learn from is fine, even if you are going to learn how to play like a bot, as long as it's your own head doing it, then that's fine. But what's not fine is using GTO Wizard while you're playing to analyze current situations you're in. That is cheating. That is like using a bot. That is using a computer to make decisions for you. And that gives you an edge over everybody else who is not using a computer to make decisions for them. So GTO Wizard is not allowed on ACR. It is not allowed on most poker sites. And out of concern, or shall I say, a way to pacify the concern that people had in the poker community about GTO Wizard being used to cheat, because it's not a cheating tool, it just can be used to cheat, GTO Wizard actually provides a checking tool that people can enter hand info to see when GTO Wizard was ever used with that particular hand. So you enter a hand with everything you see on the board and the cards involved. You enter as much info as you have, and then GTO Wizard will spit out, oh yeah, this was last looked up at such and such date and time. And if it matches when the hand was played live, well, then you know it's very likely that one of the players in the hand looked it up. So that can be used to catch cheating via GTO Wizard. Anyway, all that was seen here was that Nacho Barbero stupidly showed that GTO Wizard was on his screen while he was playing ACR. There were two windows up, and then in between the two windows on his screen was GTO Wizard in the background. Now, what's interesting is both windows were not right next to each other of the poker play, which you typically do, right? If you're playing online poker and all you're doing is playing online poker, you'd usually put the two windows of the online poker right next to each other. You wouldn't have a gap in between. I mean, you can have a gap in between, but you just usually wouldn't do it. But he had a gap in between with GTO Wizard kind of under the two windows in that gap to where he can kind of click on it at any time. So people pointed out that it wasn't just that it was on his screen, because you can always have the excuse, oh, I was using it before I started playing, I just never closed it. And people are like, no, we see there's a gap there, so you can easily click on it and bring it into the foreground if you need it. Whereas if you had been using it before you were playing and aren't using it now, you wouldn't need access to it while you're playing. It would be either closed or just way off in the background and the two screens would be covering it. So that's a good point. So a person on Twitter/X named Gilly, Gilley, I don't know who he is, but he wrote, "Yo, ACR Poker, can we use GTO Wizard while playing on your site?" And then he posted the picture of what Nacho Barbero was doing. Well, Nacho Barbero at first attempted to come up with a weak excuse as to what was going on. This is on January 31st, by the way. He said, hey, I was coaching 4 of my horses on a Discord call. I don't play online. They don't have the GTO Wizard Pro, so I was looking at some spots for them. My bad. I emailed GTO Wizard Game Integrity, and they're going to send me all the spots I searched yesterday, and I'm going to publish them. That's kind of a weird excuse. So basically he's saying, yeah, GTO Wizard is up on my screen. You're right, but hold on. I don't play online. First of all, what? What do you mean don't play online? You're an ACR-sponsored pro, and the picture that you posted on your own Instagram was you playing online. I don't play online. You're playing online. There's 2 windows right there if you play online. What do you mean don't play online? I don't know what he's even trying to say there. But I don't play online. They don't have the GTO Wizard Pro, so I was looking up some spots for them. So he's basically saying that 4 people that he's coaching, he was helping them, and none of them have the pro version of GTO Wizard. So they're like, hey, Nacho, can you help us with these spots? We can't look them up. You can because you have the pro version. So can you look this up and send them to us? And then he did, and then he just forgot to take this down from his screen and just started playing the ACR Venom. And it just happened to be on the screen and happened to have a gap between the 2 windows so he could access it. I mean, come on. So he's saying, I emailed GTO Wizard and they're going to send me all the spots that I searched, and you'll see that I didn't search any of these hands. That's what he's trying to claim. So Gilly said back, weirdly worded post in that case. It isn't clear if you're playing here or not. So he's basically saying, what do you mean you don't play online? You just showed yourself playing online. It also sets a very bad example for the many followers you have on socials to see ACR open with an active GTO Wizard window, which is true. I'd make sure to be very careful with these software next time. So ACR tried to downplay the matter. In a now infamous tweet, the ACR account, which is at ACR_poker on X, formerly known as Twitter, tweeted this at 10:57 a.m. Pacific on January 31st. Nacho Barbero is a goofball, and we love him. Anyone who's played with, against, or around him knows he's not a GTO-style player and likely never will be. We're confident he was not using GTO Wizard to gain any advantage for himself. Yeah, he's just a goofball, guys. Don't worry. He's a goofball. Isn't he kind of funny? That little scamp. Come on. He's not a GTO guy. He's just a little goofball. Is that a good response? He's a goofball, so don't worry, guys. I don't care if he's a goofball or not. You can be a goofball and cheat. What do you mean he's a goofball? Now, what they're trying to say here is that Nacho is just like a guy with a weird play style who's never going to play GTO, doesn't care to play GTO, just does his own thing, and that he's the last one who would ever use something like that to make decisions for him. That he must have been doing it for somebody else because he's such a little goofball, he would never do this, right? That's such a dumb response. That's such a tone-deaf response. So people were really, really unhappy with it. People were making fun of that response. They were mocking that response. They were angrily responding to it. They were very, very unhappy with it. Nobody liked the goofball answer. Beyruzi, who's a streamer of poker, he mocked it. He said, "Is this seriously the best you can come up with? He's a clown. Guys, I'm also a clown. Going to make 7 accounts and collude against one guy, but I'm a goofball, so it's okay." So he's mocking that, saying he's a goofball too, so he'll just cheat and it'll be fine. Respected pro Patrick Leonard, he came back with a weird series of tweets. Now, usually Patrick Leonard, he's a bright guy. He's kind of in tune with the way people on social media are. A lot of people like him. And I was surprised at the way he handled this because he is friends with Nacho Barbero, apparently. I didn't know this till he announced that. But first of all, he did something very confusing at the beginning. He wrote this: "We're aware of serious allegations coming out yesterday after one of our ambassadors posted a photo of him playing the Venom whilst having RTA, meaning real-time assistance, in the background. Our initial feeling after starting the investigation is that it was innocent. However, we are working with the player and the RTA to provide a full report showing timestamps of his gameplay and his RTA history to ensure full innocence." Now, doesn't that sound like he's speaking for ACR here? So he goes on writing, "During this investigation, Nacho will temporarily be suspended from playing tournaments on ACR, but we plan to conclude the investigation promptly and have him back on the tables and with your confidence in the upcoming days and weeks. We understand how big of an issue this is for the community and will treat this case with an even more urgency and importance than the thousands of other cases of our strong security team deals with on a monthly basis. Thanks for trusting us and hold tight." So it sounds like he's speaking for ACR there, right? I'm like, whoa. Like, is he an ACR manager? What do you mean we? What do you mean we're aware of the serious allegations and we're going to investigate? Like, who's we? I thought he was associated with a different site. So, what's this? Like, is he secretly an owner there or secretly a manager? And people were very confused. Well, it turned out that he was writing what ACR should have written. He quoted their tweet and said, like, he didn't say this is what he was doing. I believe it now. It's just he wasn't clear. He wrote all that saying, this is what you guys should have written. That's what he meant to say. Instead, he just wrote it to make it look like he's speaking for them. That was very strange. But okay, I asked him about this, and he clarified. That's how I know this. And I believe him. But this is what he also said. He said, "Obviously, all of Nacho's friends, including me, will defend him. The haters will hate." Now, let's stop right there. Okay, so you admit you're a friend of Nacho's, and you're saying the haters will hate. What do you mean haters? How is it hatred? How are you being a hater by complaining that an ACR Site Pro has GTO Wizard on his screen while he is playing? It's not being a hater. That's a very reasonable thing for people to be upset about. He went on to write, "Nobody will actually know, so no point arguing about that. The unarguable thing has to be that GTO Wizard needs to have a delay. It's needed a delay for so long, but surely it needs to happen before WSOP this summer." So basically what he's saying is GTO Wizard needs to wait before giving its answer. Maybe 15 minutes, something like that, where you can't use it in a real-time hand. Because that would solve the whole thing. If you enter a hand in and it'll say, okay, check back in 15 minutes, I'll give you the answer. You can't take 15 minutes on a hand. So he's saying we definitely have to get this fixed. It has to have a delay. by World Series this summer so people can't use it in online World Series events, which I'm sure they always do. He wrote, I didn't fire any on WSOP Online last year and don't play the Venom. I literally love online poker and tournaments more than 99% of people. If I won't play because of GTO Wizard, imagine how many hundreds or thousands don't play because of it. Well, that's a good point. But what's this crap at the beginning about haters will hate? You know Nacho. Like, you can't say things like that. I mean, I guess you can, but you shouldn't say things like that, especially if you're a respected pro that people otherwise like to listen to. This guy's got a good rep, Patrick Leonard. I think he's just kind of blinded by his friendship. He also posted this. He made this little video to address this at 2:53 a.m. Pacific on February 1st, 2025.
I've been paying attention to the Twitter thread today, and I agree with a lot of stuff that a lot of people say, and I think probably my language that I used to probably wasn't too great to say, like, haters gonna hate. That's me hating as well, right? Like, that's me kind of being toxic against the people who are being toxic. And at the end of the day, if people are being toxic about this kind of stuff, it's because they've been cheated out of money, or like RTA's stolen money from them, maybe like the bots, they have some like previous thing, and the people are very bitter about it, and they are gonna hate on it, but like they have the right to hate on it too. Like, I had money stolen, well, potentially stolen from me with all of these things too. And I'm sure in my career I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, from RTA and whatever else. And when there was no refunds after the bot stuff for like an ambassador like Nacho, even though he's my friend, whilst I do think he's most likely hasn't done anything malicious, it's still very negligent to do it, and it's a bit of a slap in the face of the...
Okay, let me stop it right here. There's more to it. There's like a minute and a half more. You see he's walking it back a little bit, Patrick Leonard. Like, the haters got to hate. He got a lot of bad response from that. So he's trying to say, hey, look, I understand why you guys are hating, because you had money stolen from you in the past from people using things like GTO Wizards. Yeah, of course you're going to hate. That's good reason. It's all right. Yeah, he kind of realized he was stupid in writing that. Let's go on. You see here he's defending Nacho and insisting he didn't do anything wrong.
The community of the players, and it's not a good look. And I feel like ACR's response about it, oh, he's just a goofball, I feel like that's not a good response at all. And that's another slap in the face. But maybe like my comments like haters gonna hate, maybe that's a slap in the face too. Nacho's actually sent me all of the correspondence from GTO Wizard. I was going to play tomorrow. I'm in Bellagio. But I'm actually going to take tomorrow off as a way of punishing myself for saying haters gonna hate. I'm going to look through all the hands. I'm going to analyze Nacho's entire RTA history. I'm going to put a report together, and I'm going to make a video showing everything. I'm independent. Like, I'm friends with Nacho. It's not like we're best friends. We just like get on well,
Hold on. You're not independent. I don't know what you mean by that. Are you working for Nacho? No. Are you working for ACR? I guess not. But when you're friends with somebody, you should not be doing the analysis of the controversial situation. You shouldn't be. You should hand it to somebody else who will do it. You can do it also, but you should not be the one doing it. Because, like, let's say he looks this up and he sees Nacho's guilty. Is he going to present that to us? I don't know. You don't know. Maybe he has enough integrity to just say, screw it, Nacho may be my friend, but I'm going to show the world that he cheated anyway. Or he may say, Nacho, he didn't realize he wasn't supposed to be doing this. This guy, he doesn't really pay attention to social media very much, which is true. Maybe he didn't really know. I don't want to ruin his reputation. So, yeah, he used it twice, but I mean, come on, it's been 2 times. Who cares? So, I'm just going to pretend it didn't happen. I'll pretend I didn't find anything. I mean, he could do that too, because it's his friend. It is hard to rat on your friend. It is hard to do an analysis of your friend's poker play and then report honestly when your friend was not 100% innocent. It is hard, especially if you think your friend didn't really know and he just didn't realize he wasn't supposed to be using this, and now this is screwing up his reputation, but it's not like he was constantly using it. So you doing the analysis is not good. You are not independent. You're his friend. You have an interest in it coming back clean. Somebody should do it who is neutral. Someone who doesn't dislike Nacho or ACR, and someone who doesn't like Nacho or ACR. Someone who's in the middle. But Patrick seems to think he's the right guy for it. Which, if he weren't friends with Nacho, I would agree he's the right guy for it, but not with them being friends.
So I'm going to show everything, and I'm going to show hopefully that he's innocent. And if he's not innocent, I will throw him into the fire, no problem. But yeah, I've been playing all day and I haven't really been able to make some kind of nice response. Maybe I've been like replying to people quickly when I get recorded in these carnival games that I'm playing or whatever. So yeah, I just wanted to say that the language haters gonna hate probably wasn't the best language to use, but at the same time, social media, people toxic, people like to jump on, but in this case it's maybe not like that. People actually just have been fucked over by, you know, RTA and other stuff in before, and they are tilted because of it, as I am as well, and as I would be if it wasn't someone who's my friend. So maybe it's a little bit hypocritical, and I'm fine to take the heat for that.
Okay, I don't really like that response. I can say it's good that he's taking credit for the haters gonna hate thing being stupid, and that he shouldn't have said it. That's nice, he's addressing that, but he's just too confident that he's the right guy to analyze it. He then went on to tweet, this is Patrick Leonard, "I'm doing a full investigation into whether Nacho Barbero cheated in the Venom on ACR. I have every single hand he played and every single hand he has searched on GTO Wizard with the exact timestamps. I'm going to look through 1371 hands and publish my findings. For what it's worth, I still think it's very wrong what he did, and ACR should still take some action, in my opinion, as it sets a very bad precedent. But I want to do a full investigation and give the community a clear yes or no if he was cheating that day. If you would like to see anything else, please let me know. I will release the hand histories, GTO Wizard history publicly, etc. If anybody played a hand with him that isn't visible in the hands I show, I will offer a 1K free roll. This will be done as professionally as possible, and if poker goes bad for me, then I'll make a good poker security staff member, I promise." And then he shows a little video of himself doing this. Here's the problem. Here's the problem with this, aside from the fact that he is friends with Nacho. Because you can say, okay, he's friends with Nacho, but he's offering the same data to anybody else to analyze. So if you really doubt it, you can do it yourself and catch that he covered something up. Well, there's a few problems with this. First of all, there's a chain of custody issue where he is sending you what GTO Wizard sent him. So you don't know for sure if he's deleting anything that might be incriminating before forwarding it to you. You can see all the hands that Nacho played, but then he can just cut out wherever Nacho searched, and then the GTO Wizards you'll receive from him, the GTO Wizard hands you'll receive, will be ones where he didn't search. So that's not something you can completely trust. I'm not saying he would necessarily do that, but I'm not saying he wouldn't, because this is his friend. Who knows? But the bigger problem is, let's go back to what Nacho Barbero originally offered everybody before Patrick Leonard got involved. Nacho Barbero said, I'm going to email GTO Wizard support and ask them to send every hand that I searched, and then I will send it to you guys or post it publicly, and then you can compare it to all the hands I played during the ACR Venom tournament. And you'll see that none of them match. You'll see that the hands I searched were not any of the hands I played during the Venom. So therefore, I'm innocent, and having that on my screen meant nothing. That's basically what Barbero was saying at the beginning. So why was Barbero offering that? Is it because he was innocent? Well, possibly. But there's another explanation that is possible, and that is he wasn't using his own account. Sometimes when people are dying to present evidence to you to prove their innocence, and they give you a very specific type of evidence they want to give you, often that's a sign of guilt, which is kind of counterintuitive, because you would think that the guilty person would not want to provide you evidence. But what can be very strong for a guilty person who wants to make themselves look not guilty, what can be very strong for them is if they can present something to you that they know will give the appearance of innocence, and they know will never incriminate them. That's the best. That's better than giving no evidence. If you can give something that will make it look like that they didn't do it. So when you accuse someone of doing something, I'm not just talking about in poker, anything in life, you accuse someone of doing something. If they won't give you any evidence that exonerates them, that can be suspicious. If they immediately say, hey, look, let me give you everything to show you how innocent I am, well, then that's something that inspires confidence that they didn't do it. But if they just offer you something very specific, often what that means is that they know they can give you something that will make them look good, but is actually irrelevant to the whole thing. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I am accused of vandalizing someone's home, and they believe the vandalism occurred at 10 p.m. on February 2nd. And they come to me and say, Druff, I know you did it. I know you came and vandalized my house around 10 p.m. on February 2nd. So fess up, you did it. Now, let's say I know that I did vandalize that person's home. However, I actually did it at 8 p.m. and they just somehow thought it happened at 10. Of course, I'm not going to tell them that. So what I would do then is I would say, okay, what was I doing at 10? So let's say at 10, I was at a restaurant. And let's say the restaurant, I started my meal and I got seated at 9:20. And let's say the restaurant was 25 miles from their house. Something like that. And let's say I can prove that I was at that restaurant from 9:20 p.m. to 11 p.m. So I would be dying to show that person that I was at that restaurant from 9:20 p.m. to 11 p.m. And therefore, I could not have vandalized their house since I was 25 miles away from where they were during the time that they claim it happened. Right? That would be a very strong piece of information to give them to make them say, oh yeah, okay, I guess you didn't do it. And the reason I would want to give that info is because they would have had the wrong thing they're looking for. They would be looking for what I was doing at 10 when I really did it at 8. And they didn't realize that somehow they thought it was 10. So I go, oh yeah, I can prove 10. That's because you have the wrong time. So yes, I would be more likely to want to present where I was and prove where I was at that time if that time was irrelevant to what occurred. So let's connect that to here. Nacho Barbero was offering to acquire the hand histories for what he searched. But what if Nacho Barbero was using somebody else's account? And knowing he was using somebody else's account on GTO Wizard, he knows that he can send you everything he searched and it would come up clean. Now, why would he use somebody else's account? Because he obviously didn't post that picture on purpose to have that scene in the background. That was a boneheaded thing he did. So if he's really trying to hide it, why would he be so stupid to post that picture? Well, look at this. What if he's using GTO Wizard? What if someone told him about GTO Wizard and said, hey, this is a good thing you can use to get an edge in these tournaments, but you got to be careful because you're an ACR pro and you don't want anyone ever searching things up and seeing that your account was looking at hands that you were playing on ACR. It'll look awful. ACR is going to have to fire you. So you should use somebody else's account. So this way, if you ever get caught, you can have GTO Wizard check your account and then everything comes up roses. So that's why Patrick Leonard analyzing this doesn't mean anything, because even if Patrick Leonard is 100% honest in the way he does this, if Nacho was not using his own GTO Wizard account to look these up, then it would not be found. But you can say this is an unfair standard. You can't really prove a negative. So if Nacho's own account wasn't searching these hands, is it really fair to say, well, maybe he was using somebody else's account? Well, I think what should be done is GTO Wizard should be contacted, and GTO Wizard should be working with someone or something to take all of Nacho's hands during that Venom, all 1,371 hands, and compare them to any searches done on GTO Wizard with those 1,371 hands, and see if any of those came up. And then you can probably figure out whether Nacho was searching or not. That would be the only way. Otherwise, it really doesn't mean anything. And people pointed this out on Twitter. I'm not the only one saying this. Now, is it possible that Nacho Barbero is actually innocent? That it just happened to look really bad and he actually didn't do anything wrong? Yes, it's possible. It's also possible that Nacho Barbero didn't realize that he's not supposed to be doing this. But of course, if he's using somebody else's account, there's a much higher chance that he did realize it. But let's say he's borrowing somebody else's account because he doesn't have a pro account. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it's his horses that have the pro account, and he doesn't have one. Who knows? So it's possible he didn't know this isn't allowed here, but I don't think it's that likely. He would never admit it, of course. He would never say, oh, yep, guys, you caught me. Sorry about that. Sorry about the cheating with GTO Wizard. Sorry, guys. I'm a goofball. Don't worry about me. Like, no. So he'll never admit to it, obviously. If he was really caught doing this with his own picture, he will never admit to it. You know that. I know that. His story about his students doesn't really make any sense because he had GTO Wizard actively on the screen while he was playing and well positioned to make it visible when he needs it. You would not care about that if you weren't looking it up while playing. I will say that Nacho Barbero's X account only seems to be used to promote ACR and little else. He just really isn't a social media guy. So it's possible, he really doesn't read all this stuff about GTO Wizard, how bad it is with the cheating. It's possible he didn't realize how bad this was. And now he can't admit it. That's very possible. But it's more possible that he was using this and was very aware of the fact that he shouldn't be. And then he had a brain fart and posted that picture. He's so used to having that GTO Wizard on the screen, he forgot and then posted it. Now, is this a gigantic scandal? No, but it's a bad look for ACR. Their Goofball tweet was basically trying to say that Nacho wouldn't do this, that this is not his style of play. He's not interested in playing GTO. If you knew what a goofball he was, you'd realize that he's the last guy who's going to make sure he plays a GTO style. But it's important for site ambassadors to understand the major rules and to adhere to them and never have the appearance that they're breaking the major rules. So that's very stupid. It's very, very stupid that this picture would have ever been posted, whether he's guilty or not. And furthermore, when things like this happen, someone neutral from the community needs to be brought in to analyze things. It should never be that person's friend, no matter how much integrity that person has. I don't feel that I should be the right guy to analyze anything about my friends. And I don't think you should be analyzing anything for your friends for public consumption. If it's to analyze it just for yourself to see if your friend is cheating or whatever, fine. But you should not be the one taking on that task if the person you're trying to investigate is your friend and is going to remain your friend. If it's a former friend, a different story. But even then you shouldn't, because if it's a former friend, you might have an axe to grind. You need a neutral person, not an enemy of Nacho's and not a friend of Nacho's. Not an ACR ass-kisser and not someone who hates ACR. Like, I'm not volunteering here, but I would be a good person to do it. I have no prior opinion of Nacho Barbero other than just knowing he's a poker pro and have played with him before occasionally. And I really don't dislike ACR, but I also don't love them. So I would be a good person to do this. I'd be very, very honest about what I'd find. You know I would. You know I would not take pleasure in showing that Nacho was guilty. And at the same time, I would not hesitate to show he was guilty if he was. Anyway, ACR has always been a flawed site. Their social media presence has always been mismanaged. It wouldn't surprise me if Phil Nagy, the CEO himself, wrote that idiotic goofball response. He's just known to botch every social media kind of controversy and say or post something stupid and then have to walk it back later. No one actually took credit for that ACR post, so we don't know who wrote it, but decent chance it was Phil. ACR did walk back what they wrote because they realized they messed up. The next day, on February 1st, they wrote, "We acknowledge that our initial response to the concerns surrounding Nacho Barbero's play was in poor taste and did not convey the seriousness with which we take the situation. We apologize for this. We want to assure the poker community that we are conducting a thorough and objective investigation. Our game integrity and security team, along with external investigations, are carefully reviewing all relevant data, consulting GTO Wizard for analysis, and ensuring that any findings are addressed in full accordance with our terms of service. If any infractions are identified, we will take appropriate action. We understand the community's concerns and will provide updates as soon as we have more information." That was basically, oops, yeah, we didn't take this seriously enough. We wrote something dumb. Now everyone's mad, so please calm down, everybody. They really need somebody to manage that ACR Poker X account because it's never handling things well. Never. They always just pour oil on the fire. They really do. Is this going to majorly impact ACR long term? No, but it's just another strike against them. It's another thing to add to the pile that they're kind of shady, that there's just something weird about them. You can't fully trust about them. That's just always been people's impression of them. So this just adds to it. I don't think that Nacho is playing a purely GTO style via GTO Wizard. It is possible that what he was doing, and I'm not defending it here, but if I had to guess, I would think that he's looking up a few spots that are tough and he doesn't know what to do. Where he's playing his own style, which isn't GTO, but then there's those few hands where he's like, well, what the hell do I do here? Well, it would be nice to have some input from GTO Wizard, too, to help me because this is very tough and I don't know what to do. Think of your poker play. Wouldn't it be nice to have something like GTO Wizard to advise you in the toughest of tough spots? It would. That's cheating, but provided, let's say it wasn't cheating, you would like to have that, right? Even if you're not otherwise going to try to play a pure GTO style. Even if you're not trying to learn what GTO Wizard would do on every hand, if you've got your own personal style which you think works, but no matter what your personal style, you will run into tough spots where you need to figure out what to do. And the more input you can get from other sources like GTO Wizard, the better. So I think he probably used it to look up a few spots. And he was probably using somebody else's account, which is why he was dying to present everybody what he had looked up on his account. And that's why Patrick Leonard was looking through all that and Nacho was fine with it. I don't know if Patrick Leonard knows or not if Nacho was using somebody else's account. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Maybe Nacho wasn't even doing it. I don't want to say Nacho was because I have no evidence he was. So be clear, I don't have any inside information on this. I don't know that Nacho was using somebody else's account, but he could have been. Which makes the whole analysis that Patrick Leonard did useless. Because we're missing a big piece. So anyway, the whole thing's a bad look. I think it's very unlikely that was sitting in between his two windows. When he had it just in the background, it just so happened that he was looking up spots for his students he was coaching. I mean, come on. It just doesn't add up. It's just such an unlikely story. It really, really is. I mean, it's kind of like a mom is going through her teenage son's closet and she finds like dirty porn magazines in there. And she says, what's this? And he says, oh, my friend came over and he put it in there and then he forgot to take it home. And people are like, yeah, sure. It's like one of those type of spots. It's one of those spots where it just doesn't make sense. Where the obvious explanation there is the correct one. It's Occam's razor on steroids, really. I don't think this is going anywhere. I think it's already dying down a week later. But yeah, people are going to remember it. Every time you hear Nacho Barbero's name, that's going to come to mind. Let's move on and talk about Thomas Goldstein. This is an interesting and a little bit weird story. It's not about cheating, so it's different than what we just talked about. Thomas Goldstein is not accused of any kind of cheating, except on his taxes. But it's interesting, especially because of what he was doing in his life outside of poker. Thomas Goldstein was a well-known Supreme Court lawyer who was involved in about 10% of all cases argued in front of the U.S. Supreme Court since 2009. 10%! That's a lot. We're talking about all the cases that made it to the U.S. Supreme Court. He was involved in about 10% of them. Wow. So he's in some trouble right now. Not about that. But that's where he was best known. It wasn't poker. Poker, he tried to stay under the radar. He is now accused of tax evasion, and it's somewhat related to his high-stakes poker play, and also somewhat related to various young women that he was having sex with for money. So he was just indicted on January 16th, and he's accused of a number of things. And we're going to get into all these allegations. I will read from the indictment, from the federal indictment. In general, he's accused of using his law firm's money to pay gambling debts and claiming them as expenses. He's also accused of grossly understating his winnings from poker sessions and not paying taxes on them. And also that he was paying off his gambling losses through his law firm, which he wholly owned. Now, let me stop right here. You may say, well, wait a minute. Why is it illegal to pay losses through your firm if you own it completely? You can't embezzle from yourself, right? Well, that's correct. He's not accused of embezzlement because he had no partners. So it's only embezzlement if he's taking the firm's money that partially belongs to other people because he's not the only owner there. But he owned his own law firm, so he can withdraw from it all he wants, and that's not illegal. However, what you can't do is claim that your gambling losses are a business expense and write that off on your taxes. So, just put very simply, if your law firm made $1 million in a particular year and you lost $700,000 playing poker, you can't claim the law firm's income was $300,000 by subtracting the losses from the poker and then only pay taxes based upon that income. You can't do that. No, you have to pay the taxes based upon your $1 million income to your law firm. And then the losses from the poker don't matter. You can't write those off. So if you use those as a write-off, as a business expense, then that's considered tax evasion. And that's one of the things he's accused of doing, basically. Also, it is alleged that he used law firm money to pay various women he was having sex with, despite owing a large amount to the IRS at the same time. He's accused of setting them up as fake employees, paying them collectively hundreds of thousands of dollars, and putting them on the company health insurance plan, despite them doing little or no work for his law firm. There were at least 12 girls set up this way. Some of them had not even had sex with him yet or dated him yet, but he put them on there as part of a way to pursue these women, hoping that they eventually would. So why is this illegal? Well, again, any employee is a business expense, and then you can write it off on your taxes because that's not profit. It goes against the profit, and you can legally write that off. So you can't have fake employees that way because it messes up your taxes, and you end up sending the IRS less. But this was even worse because he is alleged to have done this while also owing money to the IRS. So they're like, wait a minute. Instead of setting up fake employees and paying them so you can have sex with them, why don't you send that money to us that you owed at the time? Why were you not sending us your back taxes and setting up women as fake employees at the same time? That's going to get him some trouble for sure. Is he still practicing? No, despite the fact that he's not that old. He's like 54 or 55 right now. He did retire in 2023, and it might have to do with all this, by the way. He does not have any Hendon Mob results, in case you're wondering. He presumably plays only in private games for the most part. At one point he played publicly, like Bellagio, which we'll discuss, but right now it's believed he really plays in private games, aside from like that Hustler stream, which is why we haven't really heard of him, aside from the Hustler thing I'm going to talk about, that people really weren't aware of him unless they were playing with him. Tom was talked about in 2008 on 2+2, a poster there named 88 Orange on July 8th, 2008, titled a post, Craziest Poker Game of My Life, and talked about playing with Tom Goldstein. So this shows you how far he goes back. And he was describing Tom Goldstein as a poker maniac. Tom Goldstein liked to play high-stakes poker and would play a very wild and unpredictable play style. one of the things he'd like to do would be just nonsensically raising the turn or river out of nowhere. And then you'd have to determine, does he have a monster or is he just bluffing here? So you're playing a no-limit hand with him that's going normally, as you would with any opponent, and just all of a sudden he hits you with a big all-in. What do? Like, if you have the nuts, obviously you call. But what if you've got a good but not great hand? And you go, wait a minute, has this guy been sandbagging me? He's been waiting for me to, keep betting into him, and then just pops me at the end? Like, or did he make something at the end? Like, so it would drive some people crazy because of how unpredictable he was. And this actually made him somewhat of a tough opponent, but also a lot of variance. So if you happen to have the goods against him, or happen to make the hero calls against him and you were right, you could make a lot of money off him fast. But if he's running hot, or you didn't have the balls to call these huge raises when you've got something like top pair, then you can get run over by him. In this post from 88 Orange in 2008, he wrote, "After 3 hands, my friend Fran came down from the main game in the high-limit area to the floor where my game was in progress. He came to share his good fortune with me, telling me that the main game is a very good one. I told him my must-move game seemed too good to be true. I had witnessed only 3 hands since sitting down. In the first 2, Tom had put his opponents all in each hand. Tom's opponents called him and lost all of the money they had on the table. In both hands, neither opponent had a hand with which it would seem strong enough to call big all-in bets. I remember relaying to Fran that Tom's opponents, my opponents, seemed impossibly bad, especially playing 25-50 no limit, and of my opponents, Tom's opponents, were doing whatever they could to reload with more money." So he was very confused, this guy, 88 Orange at the time in 2008, why Tom's opponent just kept calling with weak holdings these huge all-in bets. He'd only been there for 3 hands. He said, on one hand, with possible full houses, flushes, and straights possible, Tom's opponent called him with 3 tens after betting the river and being raised all in. I remember my astonishment after seeing Tom's opponent not too sheepishly tabling his 3 of a kind. Tom rolled over the winner, although I forget what it was. It was not the full house I expected. In fact, I don't even think it was a flush. It was a straight. On the third hand, there was betting and raising on the river. Tom again moved his opponent all in. This time his opponent folded, and Tom said, "Do you want to see what I have?" He turned over the first card, and it was a 10. There was no 10 on the board. Then he turned over his second card, a 3. Neither card matched any of the board, and gave Tom a hand. He had 10 high. So he's going, wow, this is crazy. I've watched 3 hands, and 2 of the 3 of them had these big all-ins. One of them was just an outright bluff with 10 high, with 10-3. and the other one, Tom had a straight, which was far from the nuts on that board, where it was a paired board with a flush possible. And Tom gets this call on this big all-in that couldn't beat a straight. And then this 88 Orange guy is like, what the hell is going on here? I never see a 25-50 game like this. And he went on to describe other things that happened involving Tom. And I won't read it all. But it's basically along the same lines, that Tom is just nuts. He said at one point, "This game is off the charts insane. I'd never seen anyone play so recklessly and yet crush the game as Tom did. Tom would raise to $400 or $500 without looking at his cards, and 19 out of 20 hands, and then he would often, but not always, bet, raise, and call until the final card was put on the board. Then he would look at his cards for the first time. Sometimes he would bet all streets, including a huge $30,000 river bet at the end. His opponents would say, 'What do you have?' He'd sometimes reply, 'Let's find out together,' because he had not seen his cards. You would never know if on this hand he had looked at his cards in advance of betting." I don't know how you wouldn't know. You could just watch him. But basically he's saying that Tom would just play in this nutty style, but the problem was he was creating such high variance at these games, like a 25-50 game, which is not a low-stakes game. 25-50 no limit is a high game, but it's not a nosebleed game. And Tom was basically turning it into a nosebleed game by playing like such a maniac, and you never knew what he had. And he would do weird things like not even look at his cards and bet the whole way. I guess this guy would write that sometimes Tom would quickly look at his cards, and you wouldn't know if he really had, or sometimes he would just be firing with really not looking. And he was saying Tom was just crushing this game. He wrote about Tom After he won over 18 hours with every person at the table gunning for him, with every person in the poker room vying for seats in the game to take a shot at him, he took out opponent after opponent. He made huge thin value bets and correctly called or re-raised bluffs, and did this all at least for 6 hours by beginning every hand by raising blind to 400. The game was so insane that even seasoned pros like Greg Mueller and Johnny Chan were often coming over to witness the craziness of this game. At one point, before the floor noticed, we were playing with Rio chips, Win chips, Bellagio chips, and all the white people were jockeying to play over every time someone went broke or took a bathroom or smoke break. Playing over means where someone takes a break, you can sometimes have a plastic case put over their chips so you don't touch that person's chips, and then you just play over their spot. So you take over their spot, and when they come back, then you have to leave. He also said that one time a player paid $1,200 just to borrow that person's seat for 1 hour and bought in for $97,000, played for the hour and lost over $20K, most of it to Tom. Now, did Tom really change his play style since 2008? Not really. That was the way he would play. And he loved it. He loved doing this. He obviously made good money at his law firm. And he loved being this hard-to-read, crazy, maniacal poker player who liked to make people uncomfortable. By the way, that's Rick Solomon's style. You know Rick Solomon, Pamela Anderson's ex? He is a high-stakes poker pro, and I've heard for so many people who've played with Rick Solomon. I've never played with him. He plays way too big for me. But I've heard from so many of Rick Solomon's opponents that the reason Rick Solomon wins is that whatever level game you're playing, he makes it play way bigger. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating to the people who think they're playing at whatever stakes they're comfortable playing, and then Solomon is so wild that he makes every pot so much bigger, and then you feel like you're at a much bigger game than you signed up for. And people get frustrated with it, and then they don't know what to do, and they make mistakes, and they get intimidated, and they play it too safe, or they don't have the bankroll to deal with the swings. So that's how Rick Solomon has won in these cash games over the years. So that was basically Goldstein's style as well. Now, does this mean that Goldstein is just this crusher who's been just winning money hand over fist since at least 2008 and beating all the pros taking shots at him and just has an unbeatable style because he has so much money behind and no fear that he's just the secret poker crusher that never loses? What do you think? No, because there's a downside to that style. And that is, one, people can start figuring out ways to beat it. And two, you create a ton of variance for yourself because there will be the sessions where your opponents keep having it time after time after time. I'm sure you've played sessions like this. I've played sessions like this where it seems like every time you get in a hand, your opponent makes a monster. Also, once you're seen as a maniac, people call you down a lot lighter, which is great when you are making hands that are better than their hands, but you're going to have a lot of times where people start calling you down a lot lighter, and you can't run them off, and they're getting hands that are just good enough to keep beating you. Ones that they normally would not call for those big bets, but because it's you, they do, and you lose more and more money. So it becomes a very, very high variance style, which can really eat you up if you go through some period of running bad. Anyway, let's go back to his law career for a second. The biggest case that Goldstein had argued in the Supreme Court was Google versus Oracle, and this began in 2010. Oracle had sued Google in that year for copyright infringement and said that Google had copied their code in the creation of its Android system, which is now in about 70% of global smartphones. And the damage could have run into the billions had Google lost. And Goldstein was their main attorney. And he argued that Google copying parts of the Java API, which is standing for Application Programming Interface, in its creation of the Android programming platform was fair use. And this had gone through the courts, and ultimately it was upheld at the Supreme Court level, the U.S. Supreme Court level, that this had not infringed copyright and that it was fair use. A lower court had decided that it was copyright infringement, but the Supreme Court ruled 6-2 in favor of Google. Google was accused of copying more than 11,000 lines of code, and Justice Breyer said that to allow enforcement of Oracle's copyright here would risk harm to the public. And some programmers said that this would turn computer code into a lock limiting the future creativity of new programs. Oracle would hold the key. So basically, he was arguing, he's no tech expert, Tom Goldstein, but he learned enough about it to say that if Google could not have this type of code in the Android devices, that this would allow Oracle too much power to not allow anyone else to compete with them by writing similar code. Now, I'm still not understanding how copying 11,000 lines of code was okay. So that was pretty good by Goldstein to get that done on Google's behalf and may have saved them billions of dollars. So he probably made good money on this defense. I wonder how much they paid him. But that was his most famous case. In case you're wondering about his politics and his social opinions and stuff like that, he is a pro-Israel Democrat. He's not from Israel, but he's one of those Democrats that is pro-Israel in the recent controversies involving Israel, Hamas, and all that. This does not surprise me at all. More attorneys are Democrats than Republicans. He is Jewish, where it's more likely you will be Democrat than Republican, though I'm an outlier in that. And his age makes it more likely that he would be pro-Israel. The older Jews who are Democrats are still more likely to be pro-Israel, whereas younger Jews sometimes are anti-Israel despite their own background. But someone Goldstein's age is not likely to be pro-Hamas, even if he's a Democrat. I don't know how liberal he is. I'm just telling you from what I was reading on his X account, which you could find at x.com/Tom Goldstein. I don't want to get into a tangent here, but it's interesting that when the October 7th, 2023 attacks occurred against Israel, I did notice that a lot of Jews around my age who were Democrats were very outraged by it, very pro-Israel, and were mad at a lot of people on their own side, I'm talking about the Democrats, for being so anti-Israel and basically being Hamas apologists. And in fact, some of them moved to the right after being lifelong Democrats because they were so disgusted by this issue, and some just left the Democratic Party entirely despite hating Trump and the Republicans. They just said, we're neither now. We don't like either side now. So this was a very impactful issue to a lot of Jews, including lifelong Democrat Jews who felt betrayed by their own party. So I don't know if Goldstein feels that, but I do know that he was a pro-Israel Democrat, in case you're wondering. So let's get into what he's accused of here. So if you'd like to see the indictment, you can. If you go to Poker Fraud Alert and you go to the Poker Community Discussion subforum and you see the thread about Goldstein, which should be easy to find, if you scroll down a bit, I post a link to the indictment on something called documentcloud.org. It's 50 pages long, so you can read it yourself. It's a public record. Well, I went through the 50 pages. I went through on January 18th and scrolled through the whole thing and noted down the important parts so you don't have to. So you still can do it, but if you'd like to take my word for it, I will tell you what I found there. On page 9, it is alleged that Goldstein employed women that he was either having sex with or pursuing, and that he gave them company health insurance and deducted it from his business income as an expense, which is a no-no, obviously. On page 10, it mentioned that he failed to pay his taxes when due in most years from 2016 to 2021. Now, does that mean he hasn't been paying his taxes? No, and that's an important distinction. He has paid his taxes. He was just paying it late. Notice how he said when due. So the problem was Goldstein kind of saw taxes as something, well, the IRS charges you penalties if you don't pay on time, so why don't I just pay late? I'll pay the penalties, no big deal. I have more use for the money for other things. That was generally his attitude, according to this indictment. And the problem is the IRS doesn't take kindly to this. It's one thing to just forget to file late, then you're not going to get charged with anything. You'll just be hit with penalties and you pay them and it's done. But when you intentionally choose to just not pay your taxes on time and then blow your money on other things, the IRS starts to get pissed off and then they're going to start coming after you. So that was very dumb of him. But let's go on. You'll learn more about this as we go on talking about it. In 2016, Goldstein won 3 nosebleed poker matches against 2 foreign players and 1 California businessman. These together resulted in a very large win combined for him. How much did he win there?
$1 million.
No, not $1 million. $50.8 million. It's a lot of money. $50.8 million he is alleged to have won in those 3 matches combined in 2016. But it is said he did not report it on his 2016 taxes. It is important to note that he did not have all of himself in these matches and stalled off a lot of the action. So some of these were even too big for him. These were heads-up matches, and he didn't quite have the money that these opponents had, so he sold off some of his action. So I don't know how much he actually made for himself there. But he just didn't declare any of it. What you're supposed to do when you win that type of money and you're backed, you're supposed to show on your taxes that you won $50.8 million, and then you're supposed to show that you had expenses of such and such against it that you paid out backers. That's how it would work, and then you could deduct that and only pay taxes on that income. But they're saying that he didn't do any of that. They said that on his 2016 tax return, he stated that his net gambling winnings were $2.5 million for that year, when in reality they're about $5 million. So that's interesting that despite that $51 million win, that even the IRS is saying that overall he netted about $5 million in winnings that year, which is much smaller. So it's probably because he lost some back and partially because he didn't have all of himself in those matches. In late 2016, Goldstein wrote to an associate of the California businessman, "I was going to use the money to pay my personal 2016 taxes, but I'm just paying penalties instead. It's fine. It's my problem." So that was said on page 16 of the indictment, and they're basically saying, look, this is proof that he knows he's supposed to use the money to pay his taxes, but he's just deciding he's going to use the money for other things, and he's saying, I'm just paying penalties instead. It's fine. It's my problem. In 2018, Goldstein is alleged to have falsely told an IRS agent that the difference in 2016 reported versus actual income was due to a big legal payment that was past due, but in reality it was gambling winnings. So basically the IRS asked him about it in 2018, and he's like, it was actually because there was a big legal payment that was past due, so it actually wasn't from this year. That's why it was a discrepancy. And they're like, no, that's all bullshit. He was actually just got extra money from gambling winnings and called it a legal payment that was past due. So they're saying he just lied to an IRS agent in 2018. In early 2017, after suffering a $9.5 million loss against another California businessman, he had a $500,000 payment to his firm sent to his gambling account instead, and then sent $178,000 to the businessman to satisfy a small part of the debt. This was listed as a business expense, not a personal expense. So basically what they're saying here is that he was owed $500K for some legal work he had done. And he said, don't send this directly to the firm. Send it to this account that I'm always using to fund my gambling. So they sent it to this other account. And then what he did was, from the firm, he sent $178K to that businessman that he owed the money, and then showed that as a business expense. So the money that came in from work he actually did, he had that sent to a different account, and then the firm sent out $178K and claimed it was a business expense and, of course, deducted that from his tax obligations. That's alleged that it occurred in early 2017. Goldstein is alleged to have solicited a law firm, a separate law firm, not his, that he had previously worked with to invest in his future poker matches with this same California businessman he had just lost to. And then he sent them a link to a, quote, online poker forum, presumably 2+2, where there were discussions that the businessman was a bad player. The law firm agreed to invest and sent $500,000 after being told that the money had to be posted by both sides in advance. So in reality, according to this indictment, no money was actually being posted, and the $500K was being sent to satisfy a portion of the previous debt. So in case you're getting confused here, basically that same businessman he had just lost to, the $9.5 million, he wanted to play the guy again, and he got some other law firm to agree to buy a piece of him, and he told this law firm to send $500K up front to this businessman, and that's the customary way it's done, he told them. When in reality, this was not going to be done that way. There's not going to be money sent up front. They were just going to play, and whoever lost was going to send the money later. And that he really did this just because he was trying to cover a past debt so the guy would play him again. Then it said that Goldstein won a few matches against that businessman and sent 3 payments totaling $91K to that other law firm as, quote, investment returns, but overall lost $16 million to the businessman in the second round of matches and did not disclose it. So then by late 2017, that other law firm said, hey, where's the rest of that $500K we sent you? And then Goldstein allegedly shifted money around owed to his business to pay it, and this was listed as a business expense. So again, like, they're not accusing him of scamming this other law firm, even though he was dishonest with them, if this is all true. But he is accused of manipulating the money of the firm to pay this other law firm because of the gambling investments here, and then listing his business expense. So that's why the IRS is concerned with it. In late 2018, Goldstein went to Macau and flew back with almost $1 million in cash. And when Customs found him with $1 million in cash, he told the Customs people that it was gambling winnings, but did not report it on his tax return. Now, the reason that's funny is you don't fly back with $1 million. What the hell is he thinking? Oh, my God. Especially after 9/11. I mean, 9/11 was in 2001, Mr. Goldstein. This is 2018. He was actually dumb enough to fly with $1 million cash. Oh, my goodness. You don't fly with $1 million cash, because then when Customs find it, they're like, what the fuck is this? And then, yes, there's a good chance it's going to be reported to the IRS. That's a dumbass thing to do. So they actually didn't confiscate it, which is surprising. They let him go, but he didn't report this on his 2018 tax return, the IRS says. In 2018, Goldstein owed that California businessman $6.5 million and signed a promissory note, and then he paid down about $2 million of it in the next 3 years, according to the IRS. Who is this businessman? I'm not sure. There's been some rumors that it was Dan Bilzerian, but I'll tell you why a little bit later, why I don't think that's true. It's possible, but I don't think it's true. If you know, you can feel free to text me, 775-372-8355. Goldstein owed about $500K in taxes from his 2019 return and took 8 months after they were due to pay them. And keep in mind, you could already pay late with no penalty because it was 2020 and you got a lot of extra time due to COVID. But he still took 8 months after that to pay them. He paid that sometime in 2021. And they said during that time that he was 8 months late, he spent about $50K on luxury items plus $550K to satisfy gambling debts during that time. So they're basically saying he owed the IRS and chose to keep gambling, paying off gambling debts, and buying luxury items for himself, which, again, is a bad look to the IRS. They get really pissed when they see things like that happening. When you owe them money and you're like, yeah, I'll send it when it's convenient. I'll send it when I feel like it later. I'll just pay penalties and, hey, look at that cool watch. I want to wear that cool watch. Wow. Like that, they don't like that. It's one thing to pay your mortgage and to buy a car because your car breaks down and put your kid in college. That's one thing. But when you're just buying luxury items for yourself because you enjoy luxury items when you owe them, they get very mad. Similarly, he owed $945,000 in taxes in 2020, and he was 19 months late paying those. And yet during that time, he paid about $1 million in gambling debts and $500K for more luxury items during that time. The indictment says that in late 2019, a heads-up match was set up between a Texas billionaire and an actor, who was then 50% backed by a producer. Now, the actor and producer are not named. They're just referred to as actor and producer. But I'm guessing that the actor might have been Tobey Maguire, because Tobey Maguire does still play a lot of these private games at very high stakes. And he's one of the few actors who is actually really good at poker. He's not like Ben Affleck, who's kind of a fish. Tobey Maguire got very good. And Tobey Maguire's made a shitload of money playing in these very high-stakes private games. And he gets into them because he's a famous actor. And then he cleans up because he's better than most of the people. So I'm guessing that this heads-up match between the Texas billionaire and the actor that had a producer 50% backing it, I have a feeling that the actor was Tobey Maguire. And who is the producer? Some people are guessing it might be Rick Solomon, who's not really known as a producer, but he was one. So he does have a deep bankroll, Rick Solomon. And it would make sense that if this game was even too high for Maguire to play, because he's playing against a billionaire, that maybe he wanted 50% backed by somebody else, and Rick Solomon knows him, so they went in together 50-50 on this. Indeed, the actor did win $15.6 million in this match. You may say, well, what does this have to do with Goldstein? He wasn't in this match. Well, the businessman, the Texas billionaire, despite having billions of dollars, refused to pay. Picture this, like some Texas billionaire comes and says, "Yep, I want to play. I want to play against that there Tobey Maguire. I can beat him. That there guy's just Spider-Man. I ain't worried about losing to Spider-Man." So he goes and plays Tobey Maguire and gets beat out of $15.6 million. He's like, "Well, didn't expect that. Well, I think that game ain't on the up and up. I think I got done cheated. Well, I ain't paying nothing." So he didn't pay anything. So the actor then hired the best attorney he knew, one Thomas Goldstein. And Goldstein eventually recovered the money in about a year and a half. So in 2021, the Texas billionaire coughed it up, and then they paid Goldstein $500K for his services. But this is where it comes in. So far, everything's fine. But according to the IRS, the actor then sent the money not to Goldstein, but to the California businessman to partially satisfy that ongoing gambling debt. The IRS says this should have been reported as business income, and it was not, because Thomas Goldstein did legal work for this actor. He did $500K worth of legal work and was paid for it. So this should not have just been sent to a third party. This should have been either sent to Goldstein, who would then declare it as business income and pay taxes on it, and then he could send it where he wants. Or even if it was sent directly to the California businessman, he should still report it as if it was sent to him, they're claiming. Goldstein paid his 2022 tax obligations of $1.1 million 6 months late, but during that same time paid $800,000 for luxury items. In early 2021, Goldstein applied for a loan to purchase a Maryland home, but omitted debt that he owed to that same California businessman and one other person. That debt totaled over $15 million. This was a federal crime because when you apply for a home loan, you have to be truthful about any debt you have, because the bank is taking a chance on you by loaning you this money to purchase the home. And if you give them a false picture of your actual debt, then you're defrauding them. That is actually a federal crime. So he didn't get that loan because the bank saw that there were tax liens related to all this other stuff we're talking about, and the bank said, nope, we're not loaning you this. So there actually wasn't any damage to the bank, but the bank still there was an attempted defrauding of them by not reporting the debt of over $15 million he had, according to the IRS, And since this is a federal crime, this has been roped into the whole thing as well. And then in mid-2021, this is what I just talked about with early 2021, in mid-2021, it's alleged that a similar incident occurred involving another lender. So what do I think of all this? That's basically what he's accused of here. There's a bunch of other small things about him receiving crypto and sending crypto and not paying taxes on it, but it was small amounts of money. It's like, well, on this date, Tom Goldstein sent $15,000 worth of crypto and didn't declare it. I'm like, come on. No one's going to care about that. That's minor bullshit. The rest of this stuff, I can see why the IRS cares, especially with all of it combined. And the stuff with the women, I can see why they care. But the little stuff I didn't even bother to list you guys because it's going to be a waste of your time, and there's no way that stuff's going to really do much in court. But here's my analysis of the whole thing. In his defense, and I'm sure this is going to be one of his main defenses from his attorneys, he did pay all of his taxes. He was just late, and in the meantime, he was frivolously spending and paying off gambling debts. But I don't think a lot of those charges will stick because ultimately he did pay his taxes other than what he evaded by under-declaring business income or over-declaring expenses, such as claiming that gambling losses were business expenses. So that's where he can have the problem. But as far as like stalling on his taxes and just paying penalties and using the money for other stuff, I don't know if that's going to stick, and if it does, I don't think it's going to be that damaging. Now, he is expected to have a high level of sophistication. This is a Supreme Court lawyer who is involved in arguing complex cases in front of the Supreme Court, 10% of all cases that were heard since 2009. So he can't claim to be a simpleton. It's one thing if you drop out of high school and you don't have any further education and you have really no life sophistication and then you make some money and don't declare it. You could argue in court, look, I never learned about this stuff. I'm not a sophisticated person. I don't know about these things. I just learned it now. Sorry. Now, it can be said ignorance of the law is no excuse, but a jury will have a lot of sympathy for you there. They can see how it would happen. But Tom Goldstein can't say that. He can't say, well, I didn't realize these were crimes. I didn't realize I was doing anything wrong. He can't claim that. He's expected, due to his profession, to have a high level of sophistication on these matters and is expected to know. So he cannot use ignorance as a defense. He can't use any sort of defense like, oh, I thought this was okay. You can't. So for that reason, and since he knowingly did these things, I assume he will end up with some kind of conviction and probably have to serve some time in prison. This is a federal case. The feds are very good at getting convictions, and I think that he will get some prison time, but not very much, is my guess. I don't think the minor allegations are going to stick at all. It would have been much worse if he just simply didn't pay taxes. Like, let's say he just hasn't paid taxes since 2016, but he's played all this high-stakes poker and paid women for sex and had fake employees. Like, there he'd really be in big trouble. But he did pay the taxes during the period they're alleging. He just didn't pay them on time and decided to pay other things. And then playing games with business expenses and business income in order to pay fewer taxes, which you can argue that a lot of businesses do, and they never get in trouble for it. But yes, this was pretty blatant to go play all this poker at high stakes and then claim it had to do with his business expenses and engaging in various schemes to cover it up. So it does look that he was doing this very intentionally to just get out of paying taxes. And the thing with the women is indefensible. I guess the best defense he could give there was that he just felt that hiring them for his law firm was his business. Of how much work they really do doesn't really matter. It's just, if he's choosing to employ them to have sex with him or to be, I guess he wouldn't put it that way because that would be prostitution, but he could say just, employing them to be, keep him company isn't technically illegal. And, if they happen to have sex with him too, then great, but that's, this wasn't prostitution. He was basically hiring these women to keep him company. And since it's a wholly owned law firm by him, that he can do it. And that he wasn't trying to evade taxes this way, and in fact he was just really trying to get these women health care because they needed it. Like, it could be something like that. But I don't think it's going to fly. Like, I don't think anyone's going to believe that this is anything but a tax evasion scheme. So I do think he will get some convictions here. I think the stuff with the women is going to look pretty bad. I think the manipulation of the business expenses is going to look pretty bad. My guess is he gets about a year in prison for this and has to cough up a few $1 million. That's my guess is what's going to happen. I also think he's going to plead guilty. I think there's going to be a plea eventually because he knows they got the goods on him. He knows he did this stuff. I mean, I don't know for sure. Maybe he's going to come back and say they're wrong about all this, but I've never seen this before where something like this detailed and the person comes back like, well, actually the feds all made all this up. They got this all wrong. I don't think that they'd come here with this 50-page indictment if this is just like all wrong. And I think we would have heard from him already publicly that this is like all made up if it's all made up. But the feds don't usually do that. They don't just like come at you with this stuff when it's all made up. So I think he knows they've got him and it's just a matter of like negotiating where it goes from here. Now, regarding Bilzerian, who's just gone off the deep end lately with his anti-Semitism, but we won't even talk about that. He has been good friends with Tom Goldstein for a long time. And Tom Goldstein actually wrote a pretty famous letter for Dan Bilzerian that was over 10 years ago that you may remember. So one of the things, or I guess controversies, that Dan Bilzerian is best known for was throwing a porn star off of a roof and injuring her. But the reason Bilzerian is not in prison for this, and in fact was never criminally charged, and in fact never even had to pay out any money civilly, was because it was actually the woman's fault. This was a stunt where he was throwing women off a roof into a pool. And she agreed to this. He didn't just throw her maliciously. She agreed to be thrown. She was naked, and the stunt was to throw her off of a roof of a Hollywood Hills mansion and go into the pool. And this was during a shoot for Hustler. They were, I don't know if it was for still shots or for video, for both. But anyway, they had it on video. And it does show that as he threw her, she stupidly grabbed his shirt. I don't know if it's like a reflex, but whatever it was, she grabbed his shirt, which then slowed her trajectory. And then she didn't make it to the pool. She slammed her foot on the edge of the pool and it broke. The rest of her made it into the water. So fortunately for her, she didn't die or anything. But she did break her foot from it and she sued him. So Bilzerian was like, what the hell? This isn't my fault. You agreed to be thrown. It was part of a stunt. I threw you properly. You grabbed my shirt. You slowed yourself down. And then you got injured. Your fault. Sorry. And he was right there. You know, despite all the crap he's done recently and all the shady stuff he did with his marijuana company, everything, there's a lot to criticize with Dan Bilzerian. But with this, he was correct. This is in 2014. So he had an attorney respond to this lawsuit, and the attorney wrote a letter back and actually published it, and it was a pretty famous response because it was so good and so effective, and really this lawsuit ended up getting nowhere. So the lawyer that was hired was Tom Goldstein, who then at the time was working with another lawyer, so it was the firm Goldstein and Russell, and this was sent to the porn star's lawyer. Here's the letter. I'll read it to you. I think I read it on the show back in 2014, but I'll read it to you again. This is written by Tom Goldstein. Dear Mr. Saluki, that's the lawyer of the porn star, I represent Dan Bilzerian and received your letter on behalf of Janice Griffith, who's the porn star. I'm genuinely sorry that your client was hurt. No one wants to see anyone injured, but the suggestion that Mr. Bilzerian is responsible for that injury is embarrassing. I'm sorry she made you suggest it in writing. The whole tragic comic thing is, of course, on tape. Given that you agreed to send Mr. Bilzerian a threat to sue, I can only assume that you must not have seen it. It shows facts your client always omits. She was under contract to Hustler and agreed with Hustler's request that she be photographed while being thrown off the roof. I always thought this kind of thing was photoshopped instead. Perhaps Hustler's editorial standards would not permit it. Perhaps she insists on doing all her own stunts. I really do not know. So, of course, he's joking around there. Hustler doesn't really have editorial standards and, of course, insists on doing her own stunts. That's a Hollywood reference, how some actors always want to do their own stunts. So he was kind of laughing that she even did this in the first place. In all events, she agreed. Very few people I know would make that choice. But there it is, and chronologically, she's an adult competent to make it. Hustler and your client asked Mr. Blazarian to be the thrower, and we can all agree that he had the better end of the deal. So, like your client, the facts of this claim won't fly. Get it? The facts won't fly just like her? The tape shows the two carefully practicing this flight of fancy under Hustler's direction and your client expressly agreeing to go ahead. In legal limbo, she assumed the risk. But maybe I'm not creative enough. Maybe your client's theory is that Mr. Blazarian negligently violated the established standard of reasonable care for one who throws a porn actor off a roof into a pool during a photo shoot for an adult magazine. I'll let that one sink in for a moment. Oh, boy. Of course, the joke there is no reasonable standard of care for throwing a porn actor off a roof. So he's taking like actual legal terms and mocking this whole thing. But there's more. The tape shows that she did the one thing she had been explicitly told in advance would stop her from making it to the pool. She grabbed Mr. Blazarian's shirt. Now, I'm no physicist, and it won't surprise you that I don't have any relevant personal experience. So I don't know the precise amount of thrust it takes to heave someone across a pool to a floor below. But I'm also not blind, and it's apparent that Mr. Blazarian's shirt did not reach out and grab her. As I said, I don't doubt your client was genuinely hurt when she clipped the edge of the pool, but there are some natural questions about how awful those injuries were. Her prompt text to Mr. Blazarian's assistant demanding $85,000 for her hurt foot inevitably leaves a regrettable misimpression that she's nothing more than a crass opportunist. Thankfully, she does seem to be getting on. I don't run in the same circles, but like a lot of people, I do have Twitter. And with all due respect, she overshares. I can't bear to describe most of what is on her eponymous account, the Janice XXX. I will save you the embarrassment of looking for yourself. Just trust me that her recent missives with the hashtag deep throat, fat pussies, and NSFW, the others are safe for work, suggest that her career is gangbusters. Indeed, I doubt the exclusive interviews with TMZ that have come from these events could have hurt. So basically he's saying, yeah, she broke her foot, but she's exaggerating this so much and using this as an opportunity to make even more money. So if your client sues Mr. Blazarian, she will obviously lose. Maybe your client will think this letter is unduly harsh. After all, I've never met her. I'm not at all familiar with her oeuvre. If my life depended on it, I cannot tell you what phrase she has tattooed on her left breast. Nonetheless, I feel my tone is justified. I didn't send a letter threatening to sue her on an obviously ridiculous claim. But please don't let her believe that since you may well have a claim against Hustler, there's no downside to tacking him on, referring to Blazarian, as another deep-pocketed defendant who might settle this to make her go away. Mr. Blazarian will never ever permit the case to be resolved prior to the inevitable judgment in his favor. If she sues, the complaint will sanctionably be frivolous. Your client should just box up almost every last bit of her property. Please exclude all videos and photographs, as well as the seemingly inevitable small yappy dog, and drop it off with you in safekeeping for Mr. Blazarian. After he receives the judgment in his favor, he will have it all delivered to him. Then he will probably blow it up with a mortar in the desert. I enjoyed our brief correspondence. Very truly yours, Tom Goldstein. That's a good letter. That is a good letter. It was a very, very well-received letter by the internet in 2014 when this hit Twitter. And this pretty much put an end to the whole thing. The porn star did not end up winning any money off Dan Blazarian. I don't think the case really went forward much past this. This basically humiliated her and her lawyer. So people are like, wow, I wish I had that lawyer. So you can see how Tom Goldstein was so successful at what he did. But anyway, he was the one who wrote that. Goldstein was mentioned a lot in Dan Blazarian's 2021 book, and he was described very positively, and Blazarian still speaks highly of him. Goldstein also described Blazarian as one of his best friends. I wonder what he thinks now, since Goldstein is a pro-Israel Jew, and Bilzerian just bashing Israel, bashing Jews constantly. I wonder what they think now. But at the time, Goldstein said, over the decades, we've done plenty of desert driving, firing automatic weapons, paintballing, and playing poker and chess. I'm lucky enough to say that he's one of my best friends. He does claim that he was a net winner against Bilzerian in poker, but lost to him in chess. And Bilzerian described that letter I read you that was written on his behalf by Goldstein during that porn star thing as one of the most infamous legal missives ever written. At the moment, Goldstein is represented by Laura and Singer, and in a written statement, Laura wrote, Mr. Goldstein is a prominent attorney with an impeccable reputation. We are deeply disappointed that the government brought these charges in a rush to judgment without understanding all the important facts. Our client intends to vigorously contest these charges, and we expect he will be exonerated at trial. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to necessarily do it. Unless there's something missing from this whole story, I can't see how he beats this, especially given the expectation of him understanding that all of this is against the law, which a top lawyer would. If there's anyone who can't plead ignorance of the law, it's a top lawyer. So I can't see how he gets out of this with nothing. But this could just be posturing by his attorneys that he is going to defend it to the end. And then they'll negotiate back and forth and come up with a plea bargain. So that, this way the government feels there's a chance they might lose and kind of look stupid. And a lot of times the government just wants to get the conviction under their belt and maybe get some money out of it. But that leads me to my next discussion about Goldstein and where this stands today. Goldstein claims, and this is just written up on Poker News very recently, Goldstein claims that he is in debt for more than $3 million and has no present income. He's attempting to prevent being disallowed to use his home equity to hire attorneys. I guess he has like $677K in home equity on his home, which is worth like $3 million. So he wants to use that equity for his attorneys, but a magistrate court demanded he put up his house as collateral for showing up to court in lieu of bail. So he's basically saying this isn't fair. He says it violates his Sixth Amendment rights and that he should be able to use the equity in his home to hire attorneys, not just put up his bail. It also was revealed in the article Poker News did about Goldstein and Bilzerian that Goldstein never did drugs. And in fact, Bilzerian was said to have tacked on a smoking pot requirement to losing a bet that the two of them had with one another. That basically if Goldstein lost the bet, in addition to the money he'd pay, he would also smoke pot with Bilzerian as one of the losing terms. And that was because Goldstein was otherwise so against drug use, and Dan Bilzerian likes to smoke pot so much. So he's like, hey, if you lose this bet, you also got to smoke pot with me. And apparently Goldstein agreed and smoked pot with him a little bit after losing. But other than that, Goldstein did not do drugs. And it was said that Goldstein's one vice was gambling. But I think there were two vices. There was gambling and then there was women. So when you hire 12 women for your law firm and they don't do any work but have sex with you, and some of them don't even have sex with you, but you're just doing this to possibly have sex with them, I would say that's a vice too. That is definitely a vice. So I guess he had more than one vice. I don't think the women were really his undoing. It's just something that looks very bad as far as the IRS's case against him. Like this is one of the things that makes him really seem like he wasn't operating in good faith regarding the IRS and his business expenses. It's just something they can throw in court that just really looks lousy. It's one thing to play games with business expenses. It's another thing to hire 12 women who are just having sex with you and claim they're employees and deduct it. That just jumps out. And so that's why I think he's not going to want to go to trial, because a jury's not going to like this. A jury can say, well, okay, he's saying the gambling losses are his business expense, but what if he's kind of putting it together that his law firm is actually legal work and professional gambling, and he just never officially declared that. And bottom line, he paid all his taxes. So what did this poor guy really do? He paid his penalties. What he doesn't owe anything. What's the problem? Like I could see that being used as a defense, but the women thing is kind of hard to explain without looking shady. You might wonder, in regards to the women, why did he have to do that? Now, yeah, he's an older guy, not really old. He's around my age, but why would a top Supreme Court lawyer have trouble getting women, especially one with money? Well, I think that since he wasn't famous outside of legal circles, unless you really followed the Supreme Court, you really didn't know who he was. And because young women are just not likely to be all that impressed and interested by that, like he can tell people, hey, I've argued 10% of all the cases in the Supreme Court. Like young women are not going to go, ooh, I want to have sex with you now. Like they're not going to be like that. It's not a job that excites them. So the only reason they're going to want to be with him in most cases is money. And it's not like he's a really good looking guy. He's mostly bald. He looks like he's kind of short and thin. Like he's just someone who I don't see the women throwing themselves at. Now, sure, he's got money. Sure, he could get decent women, near his age or even a little bit younger. But yeah, I don't know how old these women were, but if he wants like hot 25-year-olds to have sex with him, it's going to be hard to get that unless he's just paying them or paying for a lot of things that they want. Like if money does not get involved, it's going to be hard for him to get women like that. And especially if he wants multiple women. It's one thing if he's going to have like a girlfriend who's much younger than him and is pretty, and thinks, okay, well, I'm going to have a nice life with this guy because he's got a lot of money and he's respected in the legal community and this is kind of good. I'd like to marry a guy like this. Like he could probably manage that. But if he wants to like go around just having casual sex with younger women, it's going to be hard to do that if money doesn't get involved at that age. So I think that's why he did it. I think he would say, hey, look, I can set you up as an employee. So, how would you like this fake job? I'll do you a favor. And probably he'd find women that weren't doing very well and needed money and say, hey, I can help you out. You need health care? No problem. You'll be on the company health plan. Hey, I'll give you a salary too. And they think, oh, what a nice guy. And then, of course, there's always a cost to this. And then, he eventually makes it clear that he'd like to have sex with them, and most of them probably do. So that's why he did it, is my guess. And if he didn't know the taxes, this would have never been found out. The IRS doesn't look that deeply as to what your employees do, nor do they care that much. So, yes, paying women to, quote, work for you when the working is just sex and then deducting it as a business expense, yeah, that's against the law. But they're not going to ever get that far to see that. The IRS is not going to ever even suspect this unless they're investigating you for a lot of things. But they're like, why is this guy not paying the taxes when he's buying all these luxury items and hiring all these women? And what are they even doing there? And it didn't take a long time for them to add this all up. I don't know how he thought he's going to get away with all this. That's what's confusing to me. I don't know how a very intelligent and competent attorney could think that he could do all this and the IRS is just going to shrug their shoulders and go, oh, okay, no big deal, or why all these things wouldn't come back to bite him one day. So it was just very reckless what he did. But I think it probably was from his gambling addiction and he just wasn't thinking straight. I don't think he's a criminal. I just think this is someone who wasn't thinking straight and made a lot of dumb decisions regarding his taxes. And now it's going to come back to bite him. Anyway, that's where it stands right now. I'll let you know where it goes from there. Christopher Mitchell, of course, is the gambling coaching scammer that we like to talk about on this show. We first discovered him 5 years ago. At the time, when we first discovered him, Christopher Mitchell had just gone through a gambling hot streak. He was someone who had gambled away his money and his wife's money, and they were broke and taking payday loans, and life was looking pretty bad. Now, he was already a career scammer before that. He really never held a real job. His original jobs, starting from age 18, was he was in gay porn. He was like jerking off in gay porn. I'm not even kidding. I played some of that before on here and described some of it. It was pretty gross. But anyway, he also did a lot of multi-level marketing and sold a bunch of stupid books that were full of nonsense. And he was always a very shady guy throughout his entire adult life. But what happened was, in late 2019, he apparently had a hot streak gambling, which can happen. He was not a plus EV gambler by any means. He was a stupid gambler. But even stupid gamblers can sometimes go through a lucky streak. And he discovered the martingale system, which is a very simple thing where every time you lose, you double your bet with the belief that eventually you're going to win, and then it gets back everything you lost before that. So if you bet 1, then you bet 2. Then if you lose that, then you bet 4. You lose that, you bet 8. You lose that, you bet 16. You lose that, you bet 32. You lose that, you bet 64. And let's say you win at that point. Well, then the 64 would wipe out all the other losses before that, plus you get your original bet back, and so you ended up winning the whole thing a little bit. And then you start back over. Then you start back at your minimum bet. That's the martingale system. I'm sure most of you have heard of it. And Christopher Mitchell thought this was a profound discovery. Even though this was used way before he was born and doesn't work, he thought this is the way to beat Vegas. And sure enough, he would do it and win. Because the martingale system, you'll get a lot of small wins, and then you'll get a catastrophic loss, which wipes out everything you won and more. That's what happens with the martingale system. So he was just lucky for several months at the end of 2019 and beginning of 2020. He was just lucky that he was on a hot streak where he never had that big martingale loss. Whenever he'd start to approach it, then he'd place like the biggest bet he can afford, and then that would win and it would save him. But the inevitable was coming. So through like January 2020, he had won, I think, low six figures. And he really believed that he was a new gambling guru. And he was actually selling his gambling advice, which was basically just the martingale system. It's just so stupid. But he was selling gambling coaching for thousands of dollars to have idiots come with him and copy his bets when all he was doing is martingaling. Some were paying as much as $10,000 for this coaching. And then in February of 2020, he finally took his beating and lost like $74K that month. This is by his own admission. And it all went downhill from there. And the reason he's still around is he's kept in action because he's kept various forms of this scam alive in the gambling world for the past 5 years. And it's not aimed at gamblers like me or even gamblers who aren't professional gamblers but are aware of just gambling concepts and how stupid this is. So I think anyone listening to the show would never fall for that. But very, very novice gamblers or gamblers who just don't really understand how all the odds work and everything, they just like to go and play and then they lose. And he's very good at marketing. He's very good at presenting himself as successful and a big-time winning professional gambler who has all the secrets. So people see this and they go, crap, he's winning all the time. He's not working. He's eating these nice meals. He's traveling all over the country and staying in suites. And I'm working a 9-to-5 job, and then whenever I try to gamble, I get my ass beat. I always lose. I want to win like this guy. I just got to pay him a few $1,000 to find out how? Okay, sweet, I'll do it. So that's what he's been surviving on, and he's also been surviving on BetOnline commission payments because he's a BetOnline affiliate, and any of these suckers who pay him for coaching, he also convinces them to sign up for BetOnline, and then whatever they lose, he gets 35% of their losses because they sign up using his affiliate link. So that's also, I believe, a big income stream for him in recent years. And he pivoted to sports betting. So now he claims to be the sports betting expert, which he just became overnight. But his sports betting strategy seems to just be betting on big favorites. Basically, Team A is better than Team B. Bet on Team A. I'm not kidding. That's what he does. So anyway, he's survived the last 5 years tricking people and scamming people into believing that he has made millions as a professional gambler. And he has not. He's actually probably lost millions as a professional gambler because he actually has made decent money from this scam from other people who pay him for this coaching, from the BetOnline affiliate money, all that. And these people, of course, it generates this money for him and pay him this money because they believe he's really got something to teach them. And then when they finally realize he doesn't and they're losing, then he just boots them out of his Facebook group and blocks them. There has not been one person who's come forward with any kind of medium-term or longer success story. It's not like he's got all these people saying, oh, yeah, I've been winning for the last few years using Chris's strategies. Because his strategies not only don't work, they're incredibly simplistic. It's like martingale or bet on this team because it's better than that team. Like, it's really that simple. Like, really a 5-year-old could come up with better strategies. I'm not even kidding. So I've told you guys all this stuff before. On Poker Fraud Alert, we have a very, very active and long thread on the scam, scandals, and shadiness portion of the forum, which calls out Christopher Mitchell and makes fun of him. It was started by Jeff Dime. It's actually Jeff Dime's first post on the site in April of 2020. It is now getting close to 1,000 pages long. And keep in mind, a page has 20 posts on it, so we're getting close to 20,000 posts in this thread. It's one of the longest threads in Poker Fraud Alert history. And the reason it goes so long is Christopher Mitchell is so persistent and so ridiculous and always changing around his scam, but it's some form of the same thing. And people love to make fun of him about all these different things, the dumb things he says, the ridiculousness of his claims, his contradictions, his lies, the fact that he was in gay porn and doesn't like to acknowledge it, but has acknowledged it before and then deleted those videos. There's a lot of funny things about him, even though it's kind of sad that he is scamming innocent people. So anyway, there's some people on Poker Fraud Alert that only post in that thread, that only came to the site to make fun of Christopher Mitchell. I don't think we have any actual victims in there, but people who've just observed him and think he's ridiculous. And Christopher knows and reads the thread. He doesn't participate in it, but he lurks and reads the thread. Anyway, he had various YouTube channels promoting this scam. That's where he was really getting most of his victims. But his YouTube channels would go down. So he has had 4 YouTube channels removed from YouTube for fraudulent and deceptive behavior. And I can tell you that we have been responsible for removing at least 3 of the 4 channels, and even it's possible the first one we did. The first one, it was kind of unclear what happened. There were efforts made, but it's not clear if our efforts did it or if other people's efforts did it or if it's combined. It took a long time to get that first channel down. But for sure, those last 3 removals were our doing. And we found a way to get them removed pretty fast. I'm not going to reveal it, but we have a way to remove it pretty fast whenever he makes a new channel, which is against YouTube terms. You can't make a new channel when you get deleted and just act as if it never got deleted. Like, once you get banned, you can't come back unless they grant you the permission to come back, which he's never been granted. So he can't just create a new channel and continue on with the same content. And when he does that, we have found a way to get YouTube's attention and have it removed. Whereas before, this was very tough because YouTube is mostly moderated by bots, so it can be very frustrating to report a channel that's misbehaving or scamming. If you try, it'll often just do nothing, which is very frustrating. And that's what we ran into for a long time, but we did find a way to get a hold of someone human there who has been deleting these channels. Anyway, he finally gave up on YouTube. He finally got the picture that we could remove his channels very easily, and it was not worth putting in the effort to build up a channel just to have it jacked from him. And the last channel, by the way, we waited about a month to remove it on purpose, so he put in all the effort trying to build it, and then we'd wipe it again. Because if we'd kill it after a day or two, then he's not losing much. So it's more frustrating to him to lose it after he spends like a month building the channel, and just as it's getting going, it gets slammed. And of course, this is all very good to do because it saves people. It saves people from being victims here. And I've offered him the entire way. I've said, Christopher, if I'm wrong about you, if you are a winning gambler, if you are making millions gambling in the casino and online, then show me. And I don't mean by affiliate payments. I mean, show me that you are a winning gambler. Show proof. He always says documentation beats conversation. That's one of his favorite phrases. Well, okay, do it. Document it. And I have promised, if he can prove that he is a winning long-term gambler, and we're talking about 5 years now. So if he can prove that he's a winning long-term gambler, a consistent winner like he claims, So even if he won some big jackpot tomorrow, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a consistent winner throughout these past 5 years, like he claims. If he can show that he really is, and there's easy ways he can show that, there's easy questions that can be asked of him to show proof, and then the proof can be verified, and if he really is a winning long-term gambler, then I promised I will take down the entire thread and post a public apology to him. But he won't do it, because the whole thing's a lie, the whole thing's a scam. So what had he been doing after we removed the 4th YouTube channel? He moved the act over to Facebook. Now, Facebook, we ran into the same problem with trying to get it down as we did with YouTube initially. It was very hard to get a human being at Facebook to take a look at that page and see that it's a scam. We tried and we failed. So we just could not get that page down. And that's where he was posting all his videos. Now, at least he did not have the same reach as YouTube, because YouTube and Facebook are very different. Facebook is a platform of friends where people have to friend you. They have to know to look for you and add you, whereas YouTube is just videos. YouTube, you're not necessarily looking for a person. You're looking for a type of video. Where on Facebook, you're more likely only going to find something if you are specifically looking for that person or company or whatever. So for that reason, on Facebook, the victims he was finding were ones who already knew his name and just looked for him there and then friended him or were following his account in some way. And then they'd see the videos and maybe later on they'd be enticed to join what he calls his inner circle and would pay him, or join Bet Online through his link and he'd get their losses, 35%. So I think that's the way he was supporting himself, through whatever Facebook was doing for him, plus whatever residual income he was still getting from the Bet Online stuff. But the Facebook was a big part of it, I believe. And we couldn't get it taken down. We tried. It was against the Facebook terms of service, but we could not get it down. We could not get their attention. We could not get to human beings there. It was very frustrating. Well, at the beginning of the year, Christopher Mitchell did something kind of unexpected. But before I get to what he did, I have to tell you a little bit more of a background of something that he did to a Poker Fraud Alert member, which we've talked about before. In fact, we've had this guy on to talk about it. We've had him on other times for other things. And I'm talking about Lee Bradbury, a.k.a. A Hoosier A, on Poker Fraud Alert. Lee Bradbury is a nice guy. I am personally friends with him now. I got to know him through Poker Fraud Alert. I have met him. I've met his wife many times. We've gone to dinner. I've seen him a whole lot in Vegas. He doesn't live there anymore, but he lived in Vegas for some time. And he tried to do something nice for what he perceived to be a victim of Christopher Mitchell's. He saw an old guy named Bob who seemed to be a believer in Christopher Mitchell's gambling strategies. And he was afraid this old guy, who looked near 80, was just an old man who's being taken advantage of by Christopher. So what Lee did is he sent a private message to this old guy, Bob, and warned him. And it turned out Bob was not as naive as everyone thought. Bob was another multi-level marketer from the past and knew Christopher from those days. So I don't know if he was also paying Christopher for this gambling advice, but I know this was another guy who did the same sort of stuff Christopher did in the past and was a buddy of his, even though they had a big age difference. So Bob immediately showed this to Christopher. And Christopher's like, oh, this Lee Bradbury guy, who is this? Well, then Christopher, being the moron he is, because he's really a dumb guy. So some scammers are smart. He's not. He's a dumb scammer. The only thing he's good at is marketing. So this idiot believed that Lee had to be the same person who had been making a lot of critical posts on social media about him. And this other person had nothing to do with Lee. Nothing to do with him at all. Completely separate person. They had never met. They didn't live in the same state. They were not friends. Nothing. Christopher thought, there's no way that two different people could be messaging people about him. That would be like me saying, there's no way that two people dislike me on Twitter. There's no way that if two people write critical things about me, they could be two different people. There's only one person in the world who dislikes me. So it's all got to be the same guy. What if I made that point? What if anyone who bashed me on Twitter, I said, oh yeah, you're all the same fake account of the same guy. There's only one person who could be bashing me in the whole world. So if there's two, you must all be the same. Like, you think I'm insane, right? Well, that's how Christopher was. He really believed that because Lee tried to warn this old man that he has to be the same as this other guy. So Christopher thought he made a breakthrough. Oh, I know who this guy is. Even though this guy was saying his name, his true name, the guy was not hiding his name. But somehow he thought, oh, well, this guy's real name must be Lee Bradbury, and he's right here in Las Vegas. He looked him up, and he's like, oh, wow, that's who's been stalking me, blah, 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 blah. So he actually filed a restraining order against Lee, and because of a really stupid thing that happened in court, he ended up winning it. And when I say stupid, I really mean stupid. The judge erroneously believed the court was being recorded by Lee's wife, and it wasn't. And what was happening was the other guy that Lee was accused of being was trying to make a YouTube video at the same time the court proceedings were going and saying, hey, there's no way I could be on YouTube right now live if they're all in court, if we're the same person. And somehow the court got confused and thought that the courtroom was being broadcast, which it wasn't at all. And then the judge, who was just about to rule against Christopher, in fact, almost gave him a contempt charge, changed his mind and said, oh my God, the court's being recorded, but all right, well then this has got to be stalking. Okay, case dismissed or not case dismissed. I wish it was case dismissed. It was, case is over. I'm granting the restraining order. And Lee had to then get attorneys to overturn it. And it cost him $1,500 to do this. And we raised the money for him because Lee isn't a rich guy. So this is harmful to him, and he was just trying to do something helpful. So we actually raised the money on Poker Fraud Alert and paid off Lee's legal bill. And attorney Eric Benzamokin gave a big piece, and a lot of other people gave pieces, and that was nice that this was done for him. So at least Lee was made whole for this by Poker Fraud Alert, and he did get this overturned. But anyway, since then, it's been kind of quiet on that front. Lee will occasionally make a post making fun of Christopher, pointing out something stupid about Christopher, but there really hasn't been much action between the two of them, and Lee is mostly not involved in that thread on Poker Fraud Alert, though he does read it, but he doesn't get involved much. So there really hasn't been much action between the two of them since the restraining order has been overturned, but every once in a while Christopher will make some dumb comment about Lee Bradbury, his stalker, which he's never been his stalker. In fact, the stalker was Christopher. Christopher posted Lee's social security number online and posted a lot of other personal info up there with this erroneous belief that he was that other guy. Anyway, what does that have to do with today? Well, for whatever reason, and I have no idea what the reason was. I have my guesses, but I still don't really know. For whatever reason, Christopher Mitchell started off 2025 by posting a long rant about Lee on his Facebook page. That is on his own Facebook page. He claimed that Lee is still stalking him, and that basically Lee is firing off messages to every single person that he can find that has association with him, and is telling lies about him. And he went on and on about all these terrible things Lee has done to him, all of which were not true. And he got responses to the thread that were sympathetic. Oh, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. And then some people were even saying, oh, yeah, he sent me a message too. Well, no, he didn't. So let me tell you what's really been going on. People on Poker Fraud Alert try to stop the scams before they occur. And by the way, this is not at my direction or anything. These people are doing it on their own just because they think Christie's a scammer. So what they do is they look at Christie's Facebook page, and then they see certain people who seem to be positive about Christopher or discuss how they might join his inner circle, or they're already in his inner circle, which means they're paying him. So then these people will sometimes fire off messages, usually under fake accounts, informing these people that this is all a scam and explaining why and directing them to Poker Fraud Alert, which is fine. They're giving them the truth. The reason it's under fake accounts is because if these people send this screenshot over to Christopher, then he may do the same thing to them as he did to Lee, and try to abuse the legal system to torture them. So These people just use phony accounts to do it, but what they're saying is true. What they're warning these people is true. They're making these people aware that Christopher is not a winning gambler, does not have winning strategies, is a simpleton, and that we've been discussing him for 5 years on Poker Fraud Alert, and come and take a look. So Christopher just attributes this all to Lee. And I don't know if he's just outright lying or if he's just stupid. It could be both, because he is very stupid. But he really does attribute all of this to Lee when it's not even Lee doing it. Lee sent that one message to that guy Bob 5 years ago. But since then, Lee's not doing this. It's other people on the site doing it on their own because they want to inform these people. They want to warn these people. And they have a right to do it. They're not writing anything untrue. So anyway, for whatever reason, Christopher flipped out in January of 2025 and posted this rant about Lee to try to get people riled up against Lee and believe that Lee is victimizing him. And what was so weird about it seemed to come out of nowhere. My guess as to what was going on was that Christopher was probably struggling. He probably was broke or near broke. And probably had people saying, hey, look, I was almost going to subscribe to your inner circle, but I'm getting this message that you're a scammer, so I think I'm just going to steer clear. And he probably got so mad that, while he's struggling for money, that he could have had some suckers buying his inner circle subscription and then backed away because someone was sending messages to them that he attributed to being Lee. This is what he wrote on January 15th. I have a psychopathic stalker, if you didn't know. You can see what he looks like below. His full name is William Lee Bradbury. However, he goes by his middle name Lee. He lives 20 minutes from me in Henderson, Nevada, which is not true anymore. He doesn't live in Nevada anymore. He discovered me on YouTube 5 years ago, and he's been stalking me ever since. False. He is fat, broke, unhappy, depressed, and insanely jealous and obsessed with Christopher Mitchell. Okay, none of this is true. He's not broke. He's not unhappy. He's not depressed. He's got a good life there. He's happy in his marriage. He has a good relationship with his kid. He has a job. Everything's fine. And he's not jealous and obsessed. He's not jealous for sure, or obsessed. It's just stupid. It's just all stupid. So he writes, I'm sharing this post for two reasons. One, if you ever leave a like or comment on any of my posts, he will contact you and start harassing you until you block him. So basically he's warning people, be careful. Maybe you don't want to like or comment my posts because someone's going to message you and say I'm a scammer. That's not what he's saying, but that's what he's concerned with there, if you read between the lines. And he's saying, basically, if you do get a message from someone saying this stuff, block him. It's this guy. Two, he absolutely craves attention and wants people to admire him more than anything in the world. So I wanted to give him a shout out to make him feel better about himself. So that's just taunting him. He flags every single post I ever make, trying to get them taken down. Well, how would he know that? Facebook doesn't tell him that. He's making up. He read Poker Fraud Alert that we're doing it, but we're flagging it because he's violating their terms of service by running a scam. He has called the police department on me several times, telling them horrendous lies, trying to get them to arrest me. No. He has called the police, I believe, because Christopher Mitchell was posting his sensitive personal information, including his social security number, online and making false allegations, trying to get people to harass him. He has called Children's Services on me. False, he hasn't done that. Many times, telling them that we beat and abuse our son. Not true. Trying to get them to take baby goat away from us. That's what he calls his son, is baby goat. Like, he calls himself the goat, the greatest of all time, which is so stupid. And so he calls his son the baby goat. He has contacted the FBI, FTC, and IRS many times, telling them all kinds of lies, trying to get me prosecuted. Well, the other guy he's talking about has done this, but the things that are being said about Christopher were mostly true. Now, I don't know if the FBI, FTC, or IRS has ever taken action, but the stuff that was being said, I believe, was true. Or at least mostly true. He has called casino 'S. That's always how he writes the word casinos. Casino 'S. By the way, that's a mistake that uneducated people make all the time. Putting 'S for a word that's a plural, especially if the word ends with a vowel like casino. So they feel weird writing casino without an apostrophe because it just seems like it would read like casinos. So they think they have to put apostrophe S instead of just S to be a plural. And they don't understand that's not how it works. It looks like a possessive. So you don't write casino apostrophe S unless you mean like the casino's property or the casino's games. Then you put apostrophe S. But if you're talking about going to various casinos, like plural, you don't put a casino apostrophe S, but he always does that. And so we made fun of it. And then very briefly he stopped, and then he couldn't help himself and put the apostrophe back in future writings because he was convinced we were wrong. As I said, the guy is stupid. So he's called Casino apostrophe S and recorded the conversations and told them that I'm running illegal scams and selling drugs on their property trying to get me banned. I haven't heard about selling drugs. The other guy did call Casino apostrophe S and recorded the conversation. It was basically just saying that Christopher is operating a scam from there, which he was. And then he writes, he keeps failing in all caps with a check mark. He has created hundreds of fake profiles on social media and literally contacted thousands of people who have made comments on my posts. He sends me, my wife, and my son death threats on a daily basis. That's completely false. Lee has never sent a threat to him. I could go on and on, but I'll stop there. He is the definition of pure evil. He was a narcissist to the T. I just wanted to let all of you know so that if you receive a private message from someone, it's him. See, there you go. He's basically saying that anyone who sends you a private message saying he's a scammer, ignore them. It's just this stalker. It's a stalker, guys. So it's not legitimate. It's not real. It's not true. It's just a stalker. And that's a common thing scammers do. When scammers realize that their victims are getting contacted by people trying to help and expose them, the scammer has to give some explanation for what's going on. So they say, I'm being stalked. I'm being harassed. This is not true. It's just a weird stalker who's obsessed with me and is telling lies about me. So that's basically what he's saying here. Now, I don't know if he really thinks all of these are Lee or if he's just blaming it all on Lee because it's easier to say that one guy's doing it than like a whole site worth of people who knows he's a scammer. It's harder to explain why like a whole lot of people would be doing this to him at once rather than just one unhinged lunatic. So this may just be him trying to simplify it so it's more believable, or he may be this dumb. Because remember, it was obvious. It was obvious he and the other guy were two different people. I even had them both on the show at one point to show that they had, are on at the same time and spoke at the same time. We did everything to show Christopher that he was full of shit, and he just ignored it all. Never explained how this was all possible, but he just was convinced that Lee was the only person in the world who could be harassing him. And Lee wasn't even harassing him. He went on to write, as for Lee, I hope you appreciate the free publicity I just gave you. You can keep wasting your life away stalking me, but I'm not going away. Goat life, baby. And then he posted pictures of Lee and his wife. So who's the stalker here? He's posting pictures of Lee and his wife. What does his wife do? Why is his wife even involved? Like, why would you post Lee's wife? If you're not the stalker yourself, Christopher, why are you posting a picture of Lee's wife? Why? Even if you think Lee's stalking you, why would you post Lee's wife there? So this is very common with scammers. They claim victim when someone's trying to expose them. But Lee has not even been exposing him for the last 5 years. But he's the scapegoat, basically. So obviously people on Poker Fraud Alert weren't happy to see this and felt bad for Lee again. And we're trying to report this post because the post is a harassing post full of lies. Christopher is posting to his thousands of followers that Lee is a stalker and harassing him and sending death threats to him. Blah, 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 blah. Like, you don't want that type of information about you online. What if someone who's a fan of Christopher Mitchell decides to start going after Lee for this and get revenge on behalf of Christopher because they think Christopher's a wonderful guy who's being victimized? There's a lot of ways this could go. So it's very bad. So people on Poker Fraud Alert reported this post as bullying, which it is. It's bullying, it's defamation. It really is. Well, for a day or two, nothing happened. And we thought it was typical Facebook that just ignores shit like this and nothing was going to happen, just like all our other reports about his page, that nothing was going to happen. But very shortly after that, maybe like 2 days later, Christopher Mitchell's page was banned. Now, at first, we thought that maybe he deleted it himself because something caused him to go on this unhinged rant in the first place against Lee. So we thought, okay, well, maybe whatever is upsetting him so much, maybe he's broke, whatever it is, maybe that just caused him to flip out a few days later and delete his Facebook entirely. But that's not what happened. His Facebook was banned. And I was able to get independent confirmation about this. In fact, it wasn't 2 days, it was actually 1 day. So either it's a coincidence that Facebook removed the page a day after this post about Lee, or that was the reason he was banned. Or it could be something that was indirectly related to it, that maybe all the reports that we made about the Lee post, which Facebook probably agreed was offensive and against their terms, maybe it finally made them look at the other reports about the page and they realized it's full of illegal gambling content and they banned it. So it could be that too, that it got Facebook's attention to remove it. I do know for certain that the page was removed and that it was not Christopher just temporarily deleting his page, which at first we couldn't tell for sure, but I know this with certainty. So what's happened since then? That was on January 16th. We're now at February 9th. Well, I'm glad to report Christopher is not back on Facebook. He's not back on YouTube. He has an Instagram account, but he's not really using it. It appears to have hundreds of thousands of followers, but they were almost all bought. And I know this because he has hundreds of thousands of followers, and when he posts, he gets like almost no engagement. So that's always a sign that the person bought their followers. But he hasn't even really used that page since this all went down. So he's been kind of MIA, which is good. So is the scam over? I don't think so. He's never going to go get a job or anything, and this was his cash cow. He might be scratching his head going, okay, what do I do next? If I make another Facebook page, they'll probably get it deleted. If I make another YouTube channel, they'll get it deleted. Is it really worth trying Instagram? That may get wiped too. It's the same company as Facebook. So, like, what do I do? And by the way, if you search for him right now, you may find what appears to be him, but there's actually other scammers who copy Christopher Mitchell and pretend to be him and then try to get you to click their affiliate link. So that's what you're seeing. I don't believe there's any real Christophers there right now. If there is, they're not active. So I'm sure he's very upset about the shutdowns, but he's not posting anything publicly. He's not making any statement about what happened here. I think he'll come back somewhere at some point, but he does seem to be off social media for now. It's been a few weeks. And the good thing is it looks like this happened because he attacked Lee like this. So he got consequences for doing it. There's no reason to attack Lee like this, no matter what the hell was going on. And Christopher, I'm telling you, you'll probably listen to this. I'll tell you this, Christopher. People from my site, not Lee, and not even me, I'm not even doing it. If I was doing it, I'd tell you. I did have to do with removing your YouTube channels, but I did not have anything to do with these messages. I have not been messaging anybody. And to my knowledge, Lee hasn't messaged anybody since that Bob guy. But people from my site, not at my direction, but it's on their own, are doing it because they're trying to warn people about you, which is their right to do. It's not stalking. It's warning. And this will continue as long as you run your scam. So just stop scamming people. And if you don't think you're scamming, then prove it. Prove that you're really winning millions at the casino. Prove you're winning it all long-term in the casino. Prove it. And if you prove it, then we'll delete the whole thread. I'll wipe the whole thread. I'll post a public apology and say, sorry, I was wrong about Christopher all this time. I really will. But you're not going to prove it because you know you have been losing at gambling. You know you've been lying to everybody. You know you've been selling false promises to people. False winning information to people. That has hurt people who can't afford to lose the money. The people hurt by this are not the ones already rich. It's people who are working class, who just want to become financially secure. They feel like they're living from hand to mouth, or they don't have enough for their retirement, that they just want a way to finally get ahead, to finally have something in life. And they think you are their savior, and instead of being their savior, you ruin them. And you don't care. So yes, sites like this are going to help make these people aware of it. But I'm a reasonable guy, and if you can show me that these allegations are false, then I'll wipe the whole thread and post an apology. I really will. Then I'll put an end to the problem. And I can't control these other people, but I will encourage them to stop reporting your channels. I'll say, look, I'm an expert gambler. I can tell you that Christopher Mitchell is legit. I would say that if it were true. But we know I'm not going to say that because it's not true. If you can prove it, I'll say it, but you're not going to prove it. I've put this offer out for years. So, it looks like for the moment, Christopher Mitchell is MIA. And that's good. For every day he is not on social media is a day he's not scamming anybody. Or at least anybody new. He may still have some old victims he's still scamming. He's supporting himself in some way. Though he might be borrowing from his wife's father. He's been known to do that. In fact, his wife's father has co-signed on his vehicle in the past. Anyway, good job to those who reported the post about Lee that Christopher made. I was one of them who reported it. But aside from that, I had nothing to do with Christopher's Facebook being taken down. I never reached any humans there. Nothing like what we did on YouTube. I just used the report button on that particular post, as did many other people. And I guess maybe it worked. Maybe it worked. We will work hard again to get it taken down if it comes back. And now we will close this segment with some of Christopher Mitchell's stupidest hits. And this was put together by Christopher the Clown, who you can find on YouTube under Christopher Not Clowning Around. And his name is spelled Krustaford. Christopher Not Clowning Around. Or you could just type in Christopher the Clown. You'll probably find him that way, too. He has a channel that makes fun of Christopher Mitchell, and he releases videos usually every few days. They're very funny. So he's the one who put this montage together. Enjoy.
I cannot stand fucking poor people. You guys are like the fucking plague. You're like the measles, the chicken pox. You're like a rash on a bare ass that just doesn't go away. I want you to know right now, this is your warning, I'm going to say the F word. Probably a lot. So if the F word offends you, do not watch this video. So I put my finger out my window and said, fuck you! And then I drove off. These are the sports picks that I bet my own hard-earned money on. They can copy me. They don't even have to fucking think. They don't even have to use their brain. And all they got to do is copy me for $1,000 a month. Folks, I make over $100,000 per month. And you can copy exactly what I do for $1,000 a month. Does $1,000 a month seem ridiculous? We should all come together and help each other out. What he means is, Christopher, you should let people join your private inner circle for free. You should help all the poor motherfuckers like me for free. Christopher, will you please give me a handout? That's what he's talking about when he says, we should all come together and help each other out. Well, how the fuck is he gonna help me out? Well, how the fuck is he gonna help me out? Folks, if you don't have $1,000 a month, literally sitting in your fucking underwear drawer, you can do whatever you want to do with every single... If you don't have at least $1,000, you're fucking broke. $1,000 a month. I went to dinner with my wife last night and our bill was over $1,000 a month. Just fucking chump change. Last night and our bill was over $1,000 a month. Just fucking chump change. So then they lie. So then he says right here, I never went to college, but I make over $380,000 a year. It's a fucking lie. He downright fucking lied. You know how I know? See, I can pinpoint lies. I got to where I am today because I lost over $2 million fucking dollars gambling. I am not broke. He's getting defensive. He's pissed off. I hurt his fucking feelings. I hurt his fragile little ego. So now he's really going to be pissed off at me, which I don't give a fuck. If you, David, or anybody watching this video is pissed off at me because of my language, or you think I'm fucking cruel, you think I'm insensitive, you think I don't help the gambling community, block me. Get off of my fucking page. Stop wasting your time. I don't give a fuck what you or anyone else in the world thinks about me. That's why I'm successful. Granted, I lost my cool. So, my question to you is this. Number one, I'm assuming most people probably never would have even parked on that level because they saw cones, and most of society is obedient and do whatever they're told to do. Well, I've never been that way. I'm the type of person that believes rules are meant to be broken. I'm the type of person that believes rules are meant to be broken. Rules are meant to be broken.
That last one was him talking about how he was such a rebel to go park in an area of a casino parking lot that was coned off and closed, and that he doesn't do what he's told. And then when he's told he couldn't park there, he flipped the guy off and said, "Fuck you." Such a rebel, parking in a closed section of a parking lot because he breaks all the rules, guys. Moving on, I want to alert you to something regarding a former World Series of Poker main event champion. In fact, he has the second biggest and almost the biggest, and for a long time the biggest, main event cash of all time. That was $12 million. And I'm talking about one Jamie Gold, who we've covered on this show a number of times, the 2006 main event champion. Been involved in a lot of controversy. May have gone broke not too long after winning all that money. Probably tried to stiff someone out of a half portion of his main event win, which we've covered before. He's been an ambassador of many stupid poker projects and one weird poker boat. So he doesn't exactly have high standards as to what he associates himself with. This most recent thing is bizarre because it has nothing to do with poker, and yet it popped up on my Facebook feed. And I have to share it with you guys because this is an ad featuring Jamie Gold. And Jamie Gold apparently cares about your smile. He doesn't necessarily want you to smile, but he cares that your smile looks nice. Let's listen to this.
I am here to share something great that can help everybody.
That's Jamie
Taking
Gold.
care of my teeth has always been a big part of my life. I am the son of a dentist. I was just introduced to this brand new Encompass toothbrush, and it is mind-blowing. I'm convinced I really am getting a 10 times better cleaning in just 30 seconds from start to finish. Imagine stopping cavities and gum disease while saving so much time every day. This company has the most revolutionary product, and they are letting the public invest for as little as $500.
Oh, invest. I thought you just want me to buy the toothbrush. It's a weird-shaped toothbrush. It's very weirdly shaped, and I guess you're supposed to bite down on it. I don't quite understand. He's also talking about how much time you're saving. Now, how much time do you guys spend per day brushing your teeth? Is that like a substantial time investment each day? Maybe I'm not brushing long enough, but he's saying you're saving substantial time. How much time are you saving? But just as you think this is a toothbrush that maybe you might want to try buying and see if it improves your oral health, no. He wants you to invest.
Join the revolution with us.
Us? Uh-oh. Does that mean he's one of the investors? RYCA International is what was asking you to invest with them. They claim they've already raised $400,000 plus in this toothbrush. And he's the son of a dentist. That means a lot. He's not a dentist himself. He's the son of a dentist. So that means you should trust him. My brother's a doctor. Does that mean you should take medical advice from me? Would you take legal advice from the son of a lawyer who is not a lawyer himself? He's the son of a dentist. The funny thing is, he doesn't play up the poker thing very much. He just pops up there and starts advertising this company, RYCA. The title of this ad is RYCA is Disrupting Oral Care, Invest in Innovation. If you want to see it, you can go to the thread on the Flying Stupidity section of the forum called Jamie Gold Cares About Your Teeth and Gums. It was posted on January 13th. Here it is again.
I am here to share something great that can help everybody. Taking care of my teeth has always been a big part of my life.
See, so it doesn't even say that he's a poker champion, though it does quickly say Jamie Gold, and it shows he's wearing a WSOP cap, but that's about it as far as poker.
The son of a dentist. I was just introduced to this brand new Encompass toothbrush, and it is mind-blowing. I'm convinced I really am getting a 10 times better cleaning.
Yeah, it looks like you bite down on it and it just automatically moves up and down. It looks like it surrounds your teeth and goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And maybe it works well, maybe it doesn't, but it's not made yet. It looks like you have to invest in it.
In just 30 seconds, from start to finish. Imagine stopping cavities and gum disease while saving so much time every day.
Wow.
This company has the most revolutionary product.
It says 2/3 of our raise goal already hit. Well, it couldn't be that revolutionary. It couldn't be that exciting. If you guys got 2/3 of your raise goal and you've gotten 400,000, you're telling me that this revolutionary idea can't pick up another 200K without soliciting on Facebook? Why does everything associated with Jamie Gold have to be shady? Like why?
And they are letting the public invest for as little as $500. Join the revolution with us.
So, what is his part in this? Is he just a spokesman? Did they give him his share for free in exchange for narrating this ad? Does he know someone who started this? Did he start it because his dead dad is a dentist or was a dentist? This raises so many questions. RYCA is disrupting oral care, but that's not necessarily good. Let's see what I can figure out here. So if you go to RYCA Inc. See, Jamie, if you get investors here, you have me to thank because nobody's paying attention to this except me. RYCA is reinventing oral health with simplified solutions that take the chore out of daily oral care, says their website, rycainc.com. Our patented and proven Encompass toothbrush effortlessly provides an optimal cleaning in just 30 seconds, preventing bad breath, cavities, and gum disease, and improving overall health. Best of all, we don't require you to be perfect to achieve perfect results. That's good because Jamie Gold is not a perfect human being. Okay, so let's listen to this commercial now, not featuring Jamie Gold, I think. I just found it, so I don't know, but let's listen here. This is A Change is Coming to Oral Care. Oh. It actually warns you this ad is 2 minutes long. Why even put that? You can see on YouTube that's how long it is. It actually says that on the ad. Oh, I see. It's showing a girl brushing named Avery. It says the time it takes Avery to brush with her regular toothbrush. You're supposed to watch Avery brushing her teeth for 2 minutes and realize that it takes a long time, and you can cut that down to 30 seconds with Encompass. It's a really, really long time. Sorry, guys, you're not going to sell this based upon 2 minutes being a long time.
I had to help them pick out the movie.
Now, this is weird. Avery's older sister shows up and says something like, sorry, I had to help them pick up the movie. Why are you apologizing that you're starting brushing teeth like 30 seconds after Avery started? Why do these girls have to brush teeth at the same time? Is this like one of those weird families that has arbitrary rules? Kiki, K-I-K-I, Kiki is using the Encompass brush. I see. So we're about to see that Avery is the stupid sister and Kiki is the smart sister. So she comes in, says that she had to help them find the movie or something. So she's starting later and she's going to finish earlier than Avery and show her up. I want to know why Kiki and Avery's parents are getting one a crappy old brush and the other a revolutionary brush like Encompass. This sounds like favoritism to me. There's a bigger problem in this family than brushing. The family is favoring Kiki over Avery, and I don't think that's right. We're watching both of them brush their teeth. This is providing an effortless, comfortable, optimal clean. And Kiki's brushing as Avery still brushes. We're 53 seconds in. I love this music too. This is a boring commercial. You're just watching these girls brush their teeth. Look, Avery's done. Or Kiki's done. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused. Kiki's done. And she's mocking Avery now.
I was going to take forever. I'm just going to go watch the movie.
Oh, see, I've never seen 2 minutes marketed as a tremendous amount of time, but Avery is brushing her teeth with a regular brush that her parents got her, and Kiki gets it done in a quarter of the time, 30 seconds, and it's like, oh, so you thought I was going to be taking too long? Well, I'm done already, so I'm just going to go watch the movie without you. And Avery's like, wait, hold on. Avery's thinking, what the fuck? It's 1 more minute. I'm brushing my teeth. It says Avery's been brushing for 70 seconds. She still has 50 seconds to go. In the meantime, Kiki's running and starting the movie without her. Now, the joke is on Kiki because all Avery's going to miss is the opening credits. Unlike Avery, most of us only brush 45 seconds, it says. Uh-oh, they're all yelling, Avery, we're all waiting on you. Stop goofing off and brushing your teeth. You should be using the Encompass toothbrush that we only bought your sister. Wow, what abusive parents. I kind of want to adopt Avery. I want to adopt Avery and say, if you want to brush your teeth 2 minutes, it's cool. That's great. I will praise you for this, Avery. My adopted daughter. I don't have a daughter, but maybe I should adopt Avery. This is not nice. She needs to be taken out of that family. There's something wrong. There's only 1 in 10 of us are brushing properly. She's still going at it. Nearly all of us have cavities and half of us have gum disease. Uh-oh. Gingivitis. 90% of leading oral care problems are caused by incorrect brushing. Encompass will change everything. That's why we can't raise the final 200,000.
Great, now I'm the last one.
Oh, man. Poor Avery. She's the last one. They all started the movie without her. Avery's going to miss the first minute of the opening credits. How's she going to follow the action from that point? She'll come down in the middle of the movie 1 minute in. What a dumb commercial. Then it explains why Encompass works well. Uniform coverage, brush teeth evenly, even hard to reach areas. Guaranteed you reach and clean the gum line. It says proper angle. Then right pressure. Don't worry about gum or enamel damage. And just 30 seconds, get a dentist clean in 1/4 the time. Fun fact. The recommended brushing time of 2 minutes is based on dental professionals' belief that it takes at least 2 minutes to remove enough plaque and food debris from your teeth to not cause problems. Unfortunately, most people view brushing their teeth as a chore and only brush for about 45 seconds. I'm getting tired of all this shit here. It's the same thing over and over. Okay, who we are, that's more interesting. Our CEO, Ryan Schwartz, is the son of a renowned Beverly Hills dentist, Dr. Carrie Schwartz. And why is it always sons? Why isn't it the dentists themselves? Why? It's another one with a dentist father. Oh, boy. Then it talked about Ryan's experience at the dentist. Years ago, during a routine cleaning, his father's hygienist suggested Ryan whiten his teeth. As Ryan slid the customized bleaching tray into his mouth, he had a wild idea. What if I hire a disgraced poker pro, who nobody likes anymore, to represent... No, that's what it says. What if the tray was lined with bristles and could brush the whole mouth in a fraction of the time? Ryan immediately called his father, who knew better than anyone that a brush like that would be oral care salvation. That's how Encompass got started, a true father-son story. Okay, so how come a Beverly Hills dentist can't kick in $200K to invest in this amazing idea? That's kind of left out of the story. They're mission-driven, by the way, as opposed to a profit-driven company. This is mission-driven. Core to our mission is providing children, the elderly, and everyone with motor difficulties a dignified and simplified solution to oral care. Dignified. How is brushing without that brush undignified? Our team is also deeply passionate. Well, that's not good. And committed to philanthropy, sustainability, and corporate social responsibility. That's why they hired Jamie Gold. Our mission is to improve people's lives through better oral care, goes beyond those who can afford our products. RYCA looks forward to working with community partners to make oral health care more accessible and adorable? What? How can oral health care be adorable? Oh, he's brushing his teeth. He's so adorable. So I have to imagine that RYCA is probably Ryan and Carrie. Carrie, C-A-R-Y, Ryan, spelled as you'd expect. RYCA, right? First two letters of each name. I figured it out. So Carrie is involved. So why the hell isn't he kicking in the other $200K? It's $600K total. Why are you on Facebook begging for it? That should be chump change to a successful Beverly Hills dentist. Then it's talking about how only 1 out of 10 adults brush correctly. Okay, there's all these FAQs on here, but none of them tell you how you can buy it because it probably is not manufactured yet. Here's a question. Why did you choose a half-mouth design instead of a full mouthpiece? And then they answer their own question. When we started on this journey, we actually began with a full mouthpiece design in mind. What we quickly discovered is it proved too difficult to get the right motion and provide a uniform brushing with such a large brush head. Also, in complete disclosure, it was just plain uncomfortable and messy to get in and out of the mouth. That sounds a little bit dirty. All right, I've read enough. I would give you a place to buy this thing, but apparently they're not selling it yet. Oh, here's another video. I just found this one on Facebook. This is just 2 days left to invest in an oral care revolution. This was posted over a month ago, so I guess you can't invest anymore. You think if you message them and say you want to invest, you think they'll say no? All right, sorry, this was February 3rd, not January. So I guess, no, it's expired. It's February 9th right now. Let's listen, though. This is not Jamie Gold. This is someone else. Maybe it's Ryan. Let's find out together.
Hey guys, how are you? It's Ryan with Rika International. It has been such an honor to share our story with you on Start Engine. I can't believe I'm saying this, but our campaign is coming to a close in just days. Thank you so much to the over 6,000 backers who have joined us. And if you're thinking about joining us, we warmly welcome you. This year is going to be incredible. We've just launched our production tooling. We're looking at a Q1 2026 product launch and so much exciting stuff this year. More clinical studies, branding, marketing, advertising, building an army of brand ambassadors and early adopters. And of course, most importantly, getting our brush to backers prior to the launch. Thank you so much for everybody who's followed us, and we warmly welcome you to join us. There's just a couple days left. We'd love to have you. Thanks.
You think we will have this in a year? In the first quarter of 2026? I doubt it. Maybe it'll be there. I shouldn't be so doubtful. It says it's patent protected, so don't try to invent your own curved toothbrush that you bite down on. Don't. This has been done already by Ryan Schwartz and somehow Jamie Gold. Before the next topic begins, I want to point out as I'm editing it that I do have an update of the upcoming topic, and I'm going to tell you first. This is about Miami John Cernuto being on hospice care, and unfortunately he did pass away within a few days of when this was broadcast. So when you hear it right now, you will hear what sounds like he's still alive, but he has passed away. So rest in peace, Miami John Cernuto. And here is the segment we recorded when he was still on hospice. A sadder story that's going to have a sadder ending is that of Miami John Cernuto. This news just broke recently. Alan Kessler posted on Twitter that he's worried about Miami John Cernuto, who is an old school poker player who's pretty well known. Alan wrote, "I'm worried about Miami John Cernuto. No one's been able to get a hold of him for the past 4 or 5 days. If anyone can contact him or his daughter, please let me know what you find out." Well, Jeannie David, who is a friend of Poker Fraud Alert Radio and also friends with Miami John, responded, "John is not answering his phone, but appreciates all the text messages and phone calls. He's on hospice care at home right now and generally sleeping most of the days. His son is there taking care of him. I may see him Sunday, and I'll let him know about all the outpouring of love, because a lot of people were concerned when they saw all this. Miami John Cernuto is presently 81 years old, and I guess people didn't know this. He is suffering from cancer. And recently he decided to go off the cancer treatment and basically give up trying to fight it and go on hospice care for the remainder of his life. So his son has been taking care of him while he's on hospice care, which basically just keeps you comfortable as you live the final days of your life out. Usually that's something you're put on if you have cancer that is inoperable, and you just want to be comfortable as you live out your final days. So it's very unlikely that Miami John is going to make it through 2025. Usually when someone's on hospice, it's a matter of months, and sometimes it can be less than that, depending on when they go on it, and also in this case, we don't know how long he's been on it. Despite this, he did play the World Series of Poker as recently as 2024, the very last one we've had so far. And he also cashed in a different tournament on July 14th, and that was his last cash of any kind. He did cash 6 World Series of Poker events in 2024, all of which were mixed type events. None were No Limit Hold'em, and those type events were his specialty. Miami John's first listed tournament cash was in 1987, but he's actually been playing poker since 1981. He took up the game after being fired as an air traffic controller. Now, he didn't do anything wrong as an air traffic controller, but there was a big air traffic controller strike and walkout that year, and if you're one of the older listeners, you probably remember that. I lightly remember it, but I will say I wasn't closely following the news at age 9 in 1981. But I do remember a little bit of it, and what was most surprising and most memorable of this air traffic controller strike was that with over 12,000 striking air traffic controllers who walked off the job, new President Ronald Reagan fired these air traffic controllers who had walked off. This was unexpected. It was thought that this walk-off would just gain them some leverage in their demands. Instead, Ronald Reagan just fired them. This was shocking in the news at the time, but it actually ended up with positive public sentiment. A lot of people felt that the U.S. government had gotten weak and that nobody respected the U.S. anymore. So here people were feeling like the air traffic controllers were holding the country hostage by refusing to work and delaying all these flights and getting all these flights canceled. And this is after the U.S. had been kicked around on the international stage, including by Iran, which is a big reason that Ronald Reagan won so easily in his election against Jimmy Carter. So the sentiment was, hey, we're tired of this crap. We just want to see things run normally. We want to see the government take decisive actions. We want to see respect for the U.S. government again, and this was something that was seen along those lines. So Cernuto was one of those who walked off the job and got fired, and what he decided to do after that was go play poker, and he had success there, and that's where he stayed. He did not return to his career as an air traffic controller. Cernuto was very well liked in the poker community. He was known for being quiet and pleasant at the table. He has about 6.5 million in Henman Mob tournament results, and there was an attempt to bring him into the Hall of Fame, the Poker Hall of Fame, last year, but he was not inducted. There is now some pressure on the Poker Hall of Fame to induct John Cernuto before he passes away, especially because it's going to become increasingly hard to be inducted now that a lot of the great younger players are aging into qualification, which starts at 40. So a lot of these really good players are turning 40 this year or very soon. And the competition to get into the Poker Hall of Fame is going to be very stiff because very few people get inducted each year. I think it's 1 or 2. I forgot what the current rule is, but it's not more than 2. There may even just be 1 now. So the friends of Miami John have been saying, look, this guy's been around for over 40 years. He's very well known in poker. He's had some good success, and everyone likes him, so why not induct him before he passes away? There is some precedent regarding players getting inducted basically because they died. Devilfish Elliott and Lane Flack were both inducted to the Poker Hall of Fame, and probably ahead of others who deserved it more, simply because they had died shortly before that. And I guess this made them more sympathetic as far as inducting them. It kind of felt like, oh, we got to do this. This person was well known and they died. So Miami John's friends are saying, look, why wait for that to happen where Miami John can't see it and appreciate it? Why not induct him in his last days so he can see this as kind of a final thing that happens before he leaves this earth? However, there are some questions whether he has done enough in his poker career to be inducted, and there are some people saying on Twitter, you shouldn't induct him just because he's sick right now and close to death. And it is true, just because someone's well-liked doesn't mean that they belong in the Poker Hall of Fame, and that's not an insult. I don't think I belong there. So, it's not for everybody, the Poker Hall of Fame. It should be people who are really exceptional players and have exceptional results. John posted a funny story in 2018 about a $4, $8 limit game at the Orleans where two morons failed to get the bad beat jackpot there because they took some stupid actions. One of them had quad aces and one had a royal, and both were using their 2-hole cards, so that should qualify for the jackpot. However, the guy with the quad aces announced that he had quad aces, and seeing the board possibly forming a royal flush, was basically saying, hey, we shouldn't bet here. I guess the royal flush may not have been there yet, so maybe he saw a possible 4-to-a royal, and he said, nobody bet this, let's just check it down to his only opponent. And they checked it down, and one of them made a royal, the other one had the quad aces already, and only $8 got into the pot at a $4, $8 game, which means it must have just been the small and big blind. The requirement at the Orleans was $10 minimum has to be in the pot for the jackpot to hit, and no player is allowed to state what his hand is to influence the action for the jackpot, so both of these terms were violated, and these players did not get paid. At the time Miami John was mocking this, he said, just witnessed the worst, dumbest, craziest jackpot story. For $78,000 in a 4-8 limit hold'em game, would you think a guy with AA who made quad aces and got beaten by a royal could get $10 in the pot? Nope, disqualified because the pot was $8. They said even if the pot had gotten to $8 to $10, they would have still been disqualified. During the hand, the player with the quad aces stated he had 4 aces and wasn't betting. It was like a scene out of Dumb and Dumber. He didn't use social media all that actively, but he wanted to talk about that in 2018. Software Brian on Twitter, who sometimes listens to this show, he was in support of Miami John getting the Poker Hall of Fame, and in fact was frustrated that he had not been inducted last year. He said, with Miami John Cernuto in hospice, we've been let down again by the Poker Hall of Fame. Last year on our show, John made a compelling case for induction. I guess he has a poker show. Not sure which one. He checked off all the boxes, and fans rallied behind his nomination, yet when it came time, the Poker Hall of Fame failed us yet again. It is heartbreaking now to remember John speaking about his wish to celebrate his honor with his family while he still could. The system's flaws are well known. We've been demanding change for too long. It's clear they're not listening. When it comes from within or with outside, we need a shift. I'm open to helping the existing Poker Hall of Fame people or anyone else who wants to give the poker community the Poker Hall of Fame they deserve. Lastly, yes, the list is about to grow, but we must first ensure that legends that have been skipped like Miami John and Matt Savage are recognized. By the way, Matt Savage is a listener to the show, regular listener. So, just wanted to point that out. I've said that before, but since his name came up. I understand that sentiment. I just don't think someone dying or being near death should be a reason that you let them in. Now, I agree that if it looks like they'll be let in because they died, you might as well just do it before they die so they can see it and appreciate it. That I agree with. But at the same time, just because someone's sick and near death, or even that they did die, doesn't mean that's a reason to bring them in. I've got an update, though, to this story, even though it's a very recent story. Jeannie David first put this information out about 36 hours ago about him being on hospice, and that was when people first became aware of it. But an update was posted by Alan Kessler. I don't know how well he knows Miami John, but he's taken interest in this. But he did give an update. This came from Miami John's sister, whose name is Elaine Durrance. She said, "Hi, Alan. I'm Miami John Cernuto's sister, Elaine Durrance. Thank you for checking in on my brother. He's in hospice care and not doing well. I know Johnny would appreciate the outpouring of love, and his entire family does too." Now, that is a bad update in two ways. Number one, she said he's not doing well, which means he's not just in hospice care and enjoying his final months on Earth. He's not doing well kind of implies like it's coming near the end. And also the fact that it says he would appreciate the outpouring of love, not that he is appreciating it, which means he's probably not conscious. He probably cannot be communicated with. So while the update originally said he's spending most of the time sleeping, it now kind of seems like he's just not conscious and they can't even let him know that people on social media are feeling bad about this and are showing their love for him. He doesn't even know this. She's saying that he would appreciate if he knew. So this is making me think that he may have days left, not months, and that also could explain why he just wasn't responding to anybody's messages. Like maybe people were texting him and he just stopped answering, which when someone does this and they're 81 years old, then you think the worst. And that's why Alan brought this up in the first place, and then Jeannie gave the update, and then the sister gave the second update, which is worse than the first one. So I wouldn't be surprised if the next episode we do of this show will be giving you another update that Miami John has passed. Obviously, he doesn't have long. So that's sad. He did live out a full life. You know, he is 81. So unlike some others who have passed in poker that have died early, he did live to an age that's actually beyond the male life expectancy in the U.S., which is, I think, around 76 now. So he did outlive that, but still, he was well-liked in the community, and there will be a lot of people sad when he's gone. I did play with him before, not a whole lot, but I did play with him before at the World Series of Poker, and yeah, he was quiet and pleasant. I have nothing bad to say. Didn't interact with him much. You know, he was a good person to have at the table, demeanor-wise. Anyway, obviously, the end is going to be here soon. I won't even say get well, because when you go on hospice care, you're not attempting to get well. You're resigning that your death's coming soon. So it's too bad to hear, and I hope whatever time he has left that he at least has some comfort. Uh-oh, what is that? Yes, it is the show ending prematurely. Sort of. Actually, I recorded everything. I did every single topic on the agenda. Very long agenda, and I powered through it all. Now, to be honest, most of the topics that you did not hear on this broadcast actually were pretty quick. So most of the long topics were done in this, part one. And I decided in the editing process to cut it in two. It was very close because the show unedited was about 7 hours, but then, of course, I took a break, so I cut that out. So it was probably like 6:45 minus the break. So I was like, okay, should I put the whole thing up at once as a 6.5 hour show or so, or should I split it into two parts? So it's very close. When it's 8 hours, it's very easy to split. When it's 5 hours, I go, I got to do the whole thing. But 6.5 hours is kind of like right there where it's tough to see if I should break it in two. Anyway, I broke it in two. And if you don't like that decision, then I don't know, just don't listen to part two. Pretend it just wasn't there. So anything you didn't hear covered in the agenda is going to be in part two, which should be up a few days after part one. Hey, at least you got a show, right? In fact, it'll be kind of like two shows. It's kind of like two shows a few days from each other. It feels like more content, even though it's the same. But it technically is more content because this I'm recording afterwards while I'm editing it. This was not recorded the same night. So there's actually more content because of this additional stuff. There's like two of these outros, and then there's going to be another intro in part two. But then you could argue that there's less content because I edit things out and I remove the break. It's complicated. I can't really figure it out. I bet you can't either. But what you can figure out is that you'll have another 3 or so hours of content in a few days on whatever platform you listen. Thank you for coming back and listening to Poker Fraud Alert Radio after we had our hiatus. But we will continue on strong. Not as often, but we will continue for the foreseeable future. Good night for now, and shalom.